Welcome back to another episode of the Scoop College Basketball Podcast presented by Hoop Scoop Media. And we are in the midst of the offseason. And this episode is going to be solely a mid major transfer special, which we're going to have some fun with this one as fans that also appreciate the mid majors. And this is the first episode that you could also be watching on YouTube. This is not live on YouTube yet, but these recordings will be posted on YouTube. So if you're listening to this on the podcast apps and would like to see us talk, feel free to go into YouTube, Hoop Scoop Media, give us a sub, like it, comment maybe. But anyway, yeah, let's get into actual content. And like I said, this is the mid-major episode, so we won't be covering some of the main pickups, such as Tyler Perry to K-State and Max Abmas to Texas, to name a few of the really big ones that happened in the last week. Those will come in our next episode as well. And did you see that Coppin State hired a coach the other day?
Yes, that was the Morgan State assistant picked up. I believe it was a
Yes.
Morgan State. So yeah,
Yeah.
so that was right. That
So
was right in my area too. And so that we'll get we do
mhm.
have the MEAC in our notes here, right? Do we have a couple MEAC? We have at least one
Yeah,
MEAC transfer.
there's one, but
Yeah.
yeah, so I was waiting to bring it up because that was the last unfilled spot of the coaching cycle, which means that we can do our coaching grades podcast sometime soon. Um, do you think we'll still do it soon either way? But do you think there'll be any more jobs that just like randomly pop in the middle of the off season?
Oh, well, I guess honestly, given our prior episode topics from time to time, we've talked about coaching. I don't want to say controversies or scandals. I mean, anything can arise from time to time in this world of college basketball, whether it could be something with a legal or NCAA infraction. So not that we're ever rooting for that to happen, but I guess I can't quite rule it out, right? So barring something like that, I guess we would assume the musical chairs stay put for the moment, and we might be safe to hand out some of those grades, make a report card out of it,
Mhm.
but. You could see. I believe was it North Carolina A&T made a change. Not was it in the late summer? I'm trying to
There,
remember the
there
time.
were there were a few schools last year. It was Fairleigh Dickinson made a move a little late. LIU they made a move a little late. Manhattan made a really surprising move late as well. And then Hartford's coach like quit the day before the season. So that I mean that's not really too relevant. But yeah, you never think there's gonna be like jobs that pop open in the middle of the summer, but like it seems like every year just like one or two things happen. So, well,
My memory was right, by the way. Just to verify, I
yeah,
had to trust but verify my own recollection that it
yes,
was
I
an
do remember
announcement.
that one.
Yeah, it was an announcement August of 2022 when A&T had the leadership change as they phrased it with Will Jones headed out. So
Yeah,
that was that
Will Jones was like a good coach though. So,
that was part of my memory of it was, hey, that was a strange change that occurred.
and we did say that Fairleigh Dickinson one was a little strange at the time, but I think it worked out pretty well for them. So let's just get into the actual meat of the podcast. We will be talking about a lot of transfers, so might as well get started. And for the first mid major we have to hit on is Gonzaga because we just have them in there because of the conference that they're in. That's kind of how we've been sorting this. But they've like been one of the, if not the biggest winner of the whole transfer portal, getting transfers in Ryan Nemhard from Creighton, Graham Ike from Wyoming, and Steele Venters from Eastern Washington. This is a great transfer class. Like, what are your first thoughts about like these players?
Of course, Gonzaga, right? I mean, I think we'll get pushback on Gonzaga even being in the mid-major transfer special with the way the program. I'm with you though; they're in the conference, such that we can include them. But Gonzaga, are we really surprised that the Zags hit a home run here? Of course, Nembhard's the big name, but I really like getting Steele Venters, keeping him in the region and just getting him a promotion up from the Big Sky. Venters, he's 15 points a game last season, just under three
Big
rebounds a
Sky Player of the
contest.
Year.
Yeah, standing at 6'7". He's
Hmm.
plenty nimble at 6'7", playing guard. So yeah, it's a great class for Gonzaga, and I think equips Gonzaga to be. I mean, we kept talking about throughout the season, maybe Gonzaga wasn't top 10, right? Well, like, or at least wasn't the same kind of profile of a Gonzaga team that we've been getting ourselves accustomed to. I think Gonzaga's gearing up to be holding back no punches in 2023.
Yes. So yeah, Nemhard, that was a bit of a surprising one. At one point he it seemed like he was going to Arizona, and I think I heard at one point like he was like committed to like the staff at Arizona, not publicly, but like so this was a surprising one, even though his brother played there like 2 years ago. And one of the reasons he's likely going there is because his brother is in the NBA, and I don't follow the NBA to a great extent, but I think he's been like doing fairly decent for like a second round rookie. But yeah, I think Gonzaga is a great move for him because, well, first of all, if he goes to Arizona, they also have Kylan Boswell, who's like ready to break out, and that would be kind of tough. I mean, they could play together, but I think Gonzaga is great because even at Creighton, he was like he wasn't like a first or second option on offense. So even so, and he can like create. So I think Gonzaga is like a good place where like he has the ability to do it. Obviously, he's significantly shorter than his brother who made the NBA, but I think he also can like be more assertive on offense. So and then you have Graham Ike who did not play this year due to injury, but he was a Mountain West preseason player of the year. He was good at Wyoming in 2 years ago when they made a tournament. He's a pretty traditional big man, works inside the paint, doesn't really have range, but he is pretty dominant in there. And although he has limitations because he can't really shoot. Like this is still a great pickup. Like, yeah, he's not Drew Timmy, but like he's probably still like a top 100 player like in college basketball if he is what he was when he was healthy. And then you mentioned Venters. I think Venters just like fit in great. Like he'll be just a great role player for Gonzaga. So, any final thoughts about the Zags transfer class?
Well, it's too soon to pull a cliche, but rich get richer, and Gonzaga is going to be and if you have a bingo card for our first YouTube episode and you want to see how quickly I get to mentioning possibilities of realignment, we don't know anything about Gonzaga maybe joining a Power Six conference yet in the future, but I mean, if Gonzaga were to be in the Big 12 at some time, the Gonzaga is going to be even more of a player in the portal in getting maybe existing Big 12 players. Like I think Gonzaga just will continue to be on the upswing. And Mark Few isn't going anywhere either.
No, he is not. Um, Moving on to the A10 for our conference things. Dayton got Enoch Cheeks from Robert Morris. How familiar are you with him, like watching him play and stuff?
Yeah, I made my way out to Moon Township once in my time to Robert Morris University, right outside Pittsburgh. And Cheeks, he was a big time starter at guard for Robert Morris. Now, Robert Morris's season ended in the Horizon quarterfinal, an overtime loss against Cleveland State. Cheeks led Robert Morris in minutes in that game with 42. He didn't have his best day in terms of caring for the basketball. He had 5 turnovers to match his 5 assists, and he was held at 2 for 11 from the field for 5 points. So that game in particular, that he finishes out on wasn't characteristic of his season. Overall, though, Cheeks is another, similarly, I mentioned with the Eastern Washington transfer. Cheeks is a guy who scored 15 a game, and a bit more active in rebounding and assists, though. I mean, you look at 4.4 rebounds a game, 3.5 assists a conference, 3.5 assists a game in 2022. So versatile player, and I think it does a good job here making a quick. I don't know if it's a quick trip. I don't want to trip up in my geography, but going over from Pittsburgh area to Dayton, that's not too bad. It gets to be towards the middle of the Midwest of the country, and yeah, I think it's a good move for both parties.
Yeah, he can really like play defense. He was top 5 in the Horizon in steals per game and blocks per game, which the blocks per game is especially impressive considering he's like a 6'3" point guard. And yeah, like he's a really well-rounded player, can shoot a ball decent, passes the ball good, can rebound. turnovers are a little bit concerning, but when you have a player that's like so high usage as him, sometimes you just gotta live with that.
Right, right. It's a matter of volume, right? We talk about volume of shooting, well, volume of ball handling, and he evens it out a little bit, right? Like if you're going to turn the ball over from time to time on offense, the least you can do is continue to be active on defense and make it go the other way too. And so like there's the steals and the blocks. Talk about his bounce, at that height. Yeah. So I think it's very coachable too. Like you can get that ball security coached up as well.
Yes. Moving on in the conference with George Mason, they lost their coach, but they brought in some real talents. They got Darius Maddox, Keyshawn Hall, Woody Newton, and they also got a few other guys. But we're gonna focus on those three. And like Tony Skinn, he's been bringing in some talent. Like, is he a better recruiter than Kim English? Like,
I think we might have. I need to see the results from this coming season. I want to see how the teams stack up in each of their respective conferences. But it's a good sign for George Mason that we're having that question posed a little bit, right? It's because it's been a busy off season for the Patriots.
yeah, and I mean, I don't mean to jump the gun in this with asking that question, but like English got his fair share of talent, but like a lot of the really good guys he got were guys he had coached before in the past. And while it's still notable that he's able to get them, like that connection was already there. So, but like these are like three good pickups that I don't think like Skin had like huge association with in the past. And Maddox is good. Like he was supposed to be a huge breakout player this year. Wasn't as good as maybe he was hyped up to be with that breakout, but he was still a solid player in the ACC for Virginia Tech. He averaged let me pull up. This doesn't want to load. I think he averaged like 8 a game. But yeah, he's a solid wing, very solid, very probably like potentially all conference A10 player for sure. Um, then you have Keyshawn Hall, who was he's like a big guard. Like he can like handle the ball. He can like drive to the rim, and he's like built like a forward. So he didn't play a ton at UNLV, but his per 40 like per numbers were pretty impressive. He scored a lot considering he was not in a game that much. And Woody Newton, Woody Newton might have to sit out this year because he's a multiple time transfer. But was he might have been at Syracuse? No, I don't think he was at Syracuse the same time as you. But do you have any recollection of him playing there? I mean, he didn't really play that much there, but
Yeah, I think I'm trying to recall his being on the roster. I know him better as just being from Maryland. It's a good homecoming for him to get back to George Mason, get back to that Northern
are
Virginia
you
area. Like
familiar
twice
with
he's listed.
are you familiar with his like play style and
I didn't get to see much of him at SCU. I didn't. But you talk about a bigger guard earlier in this discussion for George Mason. Well, and Woody Newton's listed at 6'9" at guard, so more height.
yeah, I mean he was a solid player at Oklahoma State, averaged like 4.3 points, 3.4 rebounds, not amazing from the field, but like those guys only get better once they move up, once they move down in competition. And he's still like at a decently high level. Like the A10 is, they sucked this past year, but like it's still some talent. Loyola Chicago, they got some guys because they needed some guys because this was a rough year for Loyola Chicago, and year two under Drew Valentine was a failure. But like the portal changes so many things. So in the portal, they have gotten Damon Delacoon, Greg Dolan, Desmond Watson, and Patrick Mwamba. And I think these are all pretty decent gets. I really like Delacoon. He was super efficient at Dartmouth. Dolan, another Ivy League guy. He was also a really efficient guy from Cornell. Desmond Watson's like already an A10 starter, and then Mwamba just committed to Other Day is a pretty versatile forward that played at Oral Roberts this past season. Any thoughts on any of these guys individually, this team as a whole? Anything on the Ramblers?
on the Ramblers, the much maligned Ramblers of this past season. I mean, it's a rude welcome to the A10, and when you have a bit of a season that really sets you back, puts you back on square one as a program, and you're making what turns out to be a lengthy transition to a new conference in terms of being viable competitively. Yeah, you need a bit of a reset in the portal. Obviously, that goes without saying. And Watson, an existing A10 starter, that's a good start. Coming in from Davidson, just under 10 points a game. Look at just over an assist per contest, not the same productivity on the defensive end, but 6'5" guard from Ohio. So he's going to be somebody who's going to be back in the Midwest. I'm always looking back, maybe guys transferring closer to home. And yeah, it's one of those seasons where coming up where I'm curious to see how minutes are completely differently distributed from the starting lineup of the prior season. Like Loyola Chicago is going to have a big turnover of its starting group.
Yeah, I think they have Philip Alston back, who was like actually really good, the D2 transfer. Um, they do lose some guys, but like the portal, like you can like win like instantly from the portal. And I think like I remember last year Loyola was like close with some guys, like in a top three, and like they didn't get to ended up being really good. So like, well, I am kind of concerned about maybe that Drew Valentine isn't that good. Like I'm gonna give him like a few more years because like this is an impressive portal class. So
Yeah,
yes.
as a head coach, you're almost resetting the clock a little bit when you put together this kind of portal class. Like you're so okay, you kind of send a message that there's going to be a new set of expectations, new fresh blood.
Yes. UMass, they got Josh Cohen, and I know you are a huge Josh Cohen fan. So tell the people what UMass is getting.
UMass is getting a hooper. I have to say, UMass is getting a hooper. One of the best big men, not only available from mid majors in the transfer portal, but one of the best big men out there. 6'10" out of Lincroft, New Jersey, over 20 points a game, 8.3 rebounds a contest, also dishing 2.5 assists per game. So that court vision from the center position. I mean, he's listed as a forward in a few places, but I mean, I call him a center as well. The court vision, the facilitation for his teammates is there. Almost 1 block and 1 assist per game in 2022-23 as well. This is a complete package, Austin. This is a package. Shot 58.5% from the field. That was top 30 nationally. Yeah, Josh Cohen from St. Francis University in Loretto, Pennsylvania. I've stopped there my fair share of times. Been cross paths with SFU, the Red Flash, and yeah, Josh Cohen's one. He has to have put himself, just by his number of years at St. Francis, he has to have put himself in the conversation for one of the best players to wear that uniform. And it's a big get for UMass. I'm very interested to see how Josh Cohen acclimates to Amherst, but yeah, it was at least along the that Mid Atlantic Northeast corridor up here. This Cohen move was one of the most splashy moves that we saw.
Yes, like I watched St. Francis maybe like once this year, but like Cohen has some like skilled moves. Like he's not just some big guy that has like no skill and just like will like try to finish over you every time. Like he has some touch in the paint, which although he can't really shoot, like he can really score inside. And yeah, like this is a great pickup for UMass because Cohen's a guy that could have gone high major, like if he wanted to, but maybe like this is more where he'll actually succeed and we're the best fit for him, which I like to see guys doing that. Go to where you'll actually be good because the grass is not always greener. Um, Rhode Island got a few guys. They got Jaden House from High Point, Zeke Montgomery from Bradley, Luis Courtright from Quinnipiac. These are all like okay gets. I'm not a huge fan of House personally, but he is athletic enough to compete at the A10 level. I'm just concerned about his efficiency. And I think of the 2 High Point transfers, Zach Austin that went to Pitt is significantly better. Montgomery is also an athlete. Like he is good, and I really liked his pickup. Courtright is also another player that like is probably worthy of playing at A10 level. He was a pretty solid point guard for Quinnipiac this last season. Any thoughts on these three pickups?
Yeah, Archie Miller looking to. I mean, it's not a reclamation project. Like the whole program at URI is pretty well supported. It's not a reclamation project, but the season they're coming off of, we talk about Loyola Chicago, that was one thing, but URI has certainly been established in the A10 for quite some time, and to go 9-22 overall and 5-13 in conference, it wasn't Rhodey's best year. So this crop of transfers represents a new slate. Yeah, you mentioned Montgomery's athleticism out of Louisville, Kentucky, and coming over from the Bradley Braves. Just under 3.5 rebounds a game for the 6'6" guard. Pretty good. I mean, you talk about efficiency on Montgomery's end. Pretty good efficiency at 43.5% thereabout in that ballpark. But I'm interested in the pickup of Courtright from Quinnipiac. I just kind of am interested in that makes sense regionally coming over from the Bobcats. 10 points a game, just under 4 assists a game. So a good. I mean, would I be? I guess it's not often. Courtright didn't play point for the Bobcats, did he? I would call
It might have been
combo.
Desi Jones.
Yeah,
I don't know though. I can't say I really watched
just based on the numbers, I
Quinnipiac.
could see Courtright being a quality combo guard for URI. I mean, we'll have to see how they all line up because this is one of those bigger classes that we're going to touch on in the A10. So it's going to be a number of pieces to move around for Archie.
Yeah. Yeah, it was kind of Desi Jones, but I mean, he can run the point a little bit. They also got a transfer tonight in David Green from Louisiana Tech, formerly of Hofstra. Do you remember him at all? I don't think he played a ton, but he did
Yeah,
play at
I might. I
Hofstra.
mean, it's a name I might vaguely recognize, but I could be even confusing that name with somebody else I saw play. So yeah, I wouldn't be able to give you the full Hofstra era breakdown of him, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, he played like in 2020-21, he played like 18 games, 3.1 points per game as a freshman. Nothing crazy, but he did play there before. And that's another like solid pickup. Maybe you're hoping that Rhode Island gets someone like these three guys are all good, but Rhode Island might need like a go-to guy, and they got a few good JUCO guys as well. So I'm interested to see how year two of Archie goes because year one was not ideal. But anyway, St. Louis picked up CJ Nolan from Oklahoma. He didn't play a ton of Oklahoma. Like he played, but I think this is a perfect like landing spot for him. So I'm interested to see if you have any thoughts on Noland.
Yeah, Nolan. I mean, he played under a half a game at Oklahoma, and St. Louis, I do think makes plenty of sense for him to kind of have a pathway to playing time. And I mean, he's one of those players where I do think. I mean, you've seen bits and pieces of production scoring wise and rebounding. I mean, he averaged 3 points and a rebound per game in this last season, but one of those players I think we'll see what he can really do, see how much of his ceiling he can really approach when he gets what we would think would be more frequent minutes with the Billikens. So I mean, we can't also sleep on the fact this is a guy was a Big 12 player, right? Does that mean power conference player for St. Louis?
And
So
like
that
he got minutes. Like
yeah, he played. It
he
wasn't like
got
he just
solid
signed for them.
rotation
So
minutes.
yeah, so I think at least by the profile of it, this is one of those transfers that can be very much mutually beneficial. But I just wish we got to. I don't want to say like it's not a situation like the jury's out. Like I'm not overly skeptical of him or anything. It's just a matter of we have to see how he gels with the existing roster as with all of these guys.
Yes. Charles Pride has committed to St. Bonaventure. Um, I I think this is a good pick for St. Bonaventure. I don't really like Pride at the high major level, but I think this is a good middle ground. He can really score. Um, although there have been some questions about his like efficiency at times, I believe, and like how effective like I think his stats dropped up a little bit, even like moving up in conferences this season. I guess his efficiency wasn't that bad, but yeah, I mean he's solid for sure. Like I think this is a great pickup
Yeah.
if you're St.
Yeah.
Bonaventure.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, I don't really think I have any concern about efficiency. I mean,
Maybe like defense a little bit
yeah,
could be a concern
but and
possibly,
then but
but
then
like
I would say
nothing major.
right. I mean, you can talk about defense and say, well, okay, well, was that even a if that wasn't a weakness for St. Bonaventure prior to Pride's commitment, then really, if the Bonnies really feel like they can already based on how they're set up live with that, they're going to take these. I mean, he's good. He's going to be a pretty good bet for 15 points a game. He averaged 14.6 this past season, 17.7 points a game in 21-22. So that would have been Bryant's final season in the NEC, right? So it would have been NEC. They wrapped up the NEC and they were in the America East for their first season in the America East in 22-23. So I mean, maybe a slight decrease in points per game with the number of games in conference play against a higher at echelon competition in the region. But Charles Pride was one of those. I kept hearing it. I heard it as soon as he entered. He was one of those names I heard a lot in this area. So coming out of Syracuse, New York, 6'4", 200. He's played his fair share of college basketball, and St. Bonaventure. I think needed to pick up somebody like this. He needed to pick up a scorer like this. So this checks a box for a lot of folks I know in the sports journalism space who are rooting for St. Bonaventure.
Yeah, can we just appreciate the fact real quick here that Minnesota got out recruited by St. Bonaventure, and St. Bonaventure has like no NIL, and they are a school in
Yeah.
a significantly worse conference, and
Yes.
like Minnesota like won. I think Minnesota like it might have been another case where like he was silently committed, then he switched up to St. Bonaventure, but like what is Ben Johnson doing over there? Like
Yeah. St. Bonaventure also like it's a name that is recognizable in college basketball. However, I need to check. It's located in like a pretty remote area. Like it's not exactly like you might say, oh, who would want to play in Minneapolis? Like well, at least that's like a city. Like I know it's freezing cold, but at least it's a city. You got power six support. But I'm looking to take a look. I can't even get Google Maps to pull it up right now. I mean, I'm not trying to dump on like I'm not trying to pile on St. Bonaventure. I'm just saying that St. Bonaventure doesn't have all the perks of a
No, I
of a
mean they
big
don't
of
have
a big city
NIL.
school.
Like that's a big
Right.
thing. Like,
Yeah, that's the biggest thing. Yep.
but yes, that was a solid pickup. VCU got a lot of guys. They got a few guys from Utah State, Sean Bairstow, Max Shulga. They got Joe Bamisile, who's really been everywhere, but formerly last recently of Oklahoma. Jason Nelson stayed in Richmond to VCU, and Roosevelt Wheeler from Louisville. And like this is a solid class to start off for Ryan Odom. Bringing those two guys, Shulga and Bairstow, in was huge. Like those guys are proven like really good players at a similar level. So like those they like proven like plus starters. So Bamisile will probably have to sit out. I don't see how he gets a waiver. I don't think he's a grad transfer, but he was like bad at Oklahoma, but like he was also decent at George Washington in the A10. So Jason Nelson, he was a solid piece. I think he was a freshman this year. He might have been a redshirt freshman. I'm not 100% sure on that. But he was a guy where his like efficiency wasn't great, but he's also a freshman putting up like halfway decent numbers. So sometimes you just have to live with that and hope it'll get better. And Roosevelt Wheeler is kind of like a potential like pick. Like Louisville sucked, but he's a big man and hopefully it'll be good, I guess. I've also heard they're strong in the mix for Afton Reed, who will
Hmm.
also likely need a waiver. But so what are your thoughts about these guys?
Ryan Odom, as I would, I mean, I'm not saying this as like, oh, it was my prediction, but as you'd expect, pulling in Utah State players following him a bit. Max Shulga, it's interesting to me. I mean, he's listed as birthplace in Ukraine, so he comes all the way from Ukraine to Utah State for Coach Odom, and is now going across the country within the U.S. to over to Richmond, Virginia. So that's interesting. I mean, Shulga just under 12 points a game, 4 assists a game, 4.5 rebounds a contest. in 35 games played, so a regular getting just over 30 minutes a contest. So that's somebody who I in this group I'm looking at as well. But yeah, I mean, this is a good pending the waivers that you're alluding to. It's a great starting point for year one to be a good one for Odom. And I'm happy to have Coach Odom back in that DMV, because he remains a big name in the DMV. He'll never have to buy a drink in Catonsville, Maryland, with that UMBC legacy. So if he wants to make his way back up there, but no, back on the floor of VCU, it's a program that's been in good shape. Obviously, there was the success of VCU that what was to its detriment in a sense with that Coach Rhodes getting the call up, but yeah, it's a good spot for VCU to kind of keep this momentum going.
Yeah, I mean VCU will look totally different next year, but all in all, I think they won't like skip a beat. Like I think they will continue to roll on. VCU is a place you can absolutely win at. Ryan Odom left a very good job at Utah State. Like, I mean, he obviously wanted to be close to home, but like, there's a certain level that job has to be
Right.
actually good for you to move all the way
True.
across the country.
I mean, we could do an exercise and say how many A10 jobs could pull ahead an existing Mountain West head coach from that Mountain West job.
And it's like
Even
a
it's like
good Mountain West job.
even an average Mountain West job. Like it's hard to do.
Mhm.
That's a good conference all in all. So it's impressive of VCU.
Yeah, but VCU is probably the best A10 job. Would you agree with that? Like in
Now
all,
I want to rattle. So Dayton comes to mind.
yeah, I was gonna say that.
Dayton's facility, Dayton's just basketball hotbed of support. So that's a good competitive comparison there. But beyond that,
St. Louis, I think, has good facilities, maybe. And I
yeah,
mean,
I
it's
mean,
a
I think St. Louis
pretty.
does. I don't know how. I mean, okay, this is not something that's ever been reported, but just like speculating, like, maybe do we even know St. Louis is going to be in the A10 like for
Where
reliably that many years into the future? Like, and I'm not saying the A10 would want to
where
take.
would they go?
Well, I'm not totally sure of that, but I'm just thinking about I'm thinking about a lot. I'm thinking a few dominoes ahead, but as long as St. Louis is in the A10, yeah, I do think that's a good one. But I feel like I just based on recent success too. Maybe we're living in prisoner of the moment. But yeah, Dayton. Maybe I'm not so. Jeff Goodman, our friend Jeff Goodman, did do a survey of coach of like anonymous coaches at different levels, maybe assistant coaches, head coaches, about the best jobs in a league. I'll have to do some homework after this and see where VCU and Dayton stacked up for in that A10 ranking. But anyway, yeah, but that could be
Either way,
different.
VCU is a very good job.
VCU is a good job. Odom's a good coach, and this is a good transfer portal class. Great
Yes,
stuff.
absolutely. Moving on to the AAC, Charlotte, who will be in their first year of the conference, has picked up some solid gets. Deshaun Jackson from Washington State and Dean Reber from Rutgers. Jackson is the one I really like. He is a big man. He was pretty productive at Washington State. His numbers don't like jump off the page, but he can really play some solid defense. He's actually like really good on defense. Can decent shot blocker, just like good all around defense. Not a huge offensive force, but like he's moving down a level, so I like it. And Dean Reber, I don't think like played a ton at Rutgers, but like kind of was marginally in rotation. So if you can get a player like that, Charlotte, you probably take him. Thoughts on
Yeah,
these guys?
yeah, you absolutely would when it comes to Reber, 6'10", so he's going to bring plenty of height to the American Athletic. He is, yeah, he just didn't get anything more than single digit minutes at Rutgers, so I'm not passing in too much judgment beyond. Yeah, he gets to come back to he's originally from Greensboro, so yeah, it's a good spot for him. And I mean, Charlotte in general is, I mean, I know it's a really crowded space across D1 athletics in North Carolina, but Charlotte is the school, right, for that particular metro area, at least by name, right? I mean, I know that it's needless to say that the ACC schools there are playing a completely different game, but Charlotte's gonna. I mean, in this new look American Athletic Conference, Charlotte's, depending on the kind of success it can have, tapping into that
Yeah,
very
I
tough
mean, they
landscape. It can have
won
some upside.
the CBI.
Yeah,
Yeah, but anyway, ECU got a few pickups. Bobby Pettiford, I really like Bobby Pettiford. I think he was like good at Kansas. Like he's maybe didn't get the minutes that just weren't available for him there, but like I think that he is a high major player. So if ECU gets him, I mean they did get him, but with ECU getting him, like the Pirates, they got a real good pickup in Pettiford, who also I believe is from he's from North Carolina, and they also got Cam Hayes, who is another guy that might not be eligible this year, but it's still like a good pickup. Like LSU was terrible, but like he was solid at LSU. Like he started a total of 45 games in the high major level. Like you absolutely take that when you're a struggling AAC program like the Pirates.
Yeah, East Carolina, ECU. Now I associate ECU a lot with the football programs. There's some connections there, but ECU is another school that is well regarded for the student life, student experience. Like you can recruit there, but you're gonna have to start with winning, right? So like Bobby Pettiford, I like Bobby Pettiford too. I the minutes. It's not like he cracked a ton at Kansas, but when he was on the floor, he wound up in last season with a shooting percentage of over 50%, from the
I feel,
field.
I
So
feel like I feel like Pettiford's just one of those guys you like just like watch and like you're good. Like the numbers don't like
yeah.
stick off the page, but like I watch him like he is a good basketball player.
Yeah, you gotta trust what you see at some point. You don't have to overthink it too much. And yeah, I'm and this is gonna be a theme of the mid-major episode, of course, but you just kind of earmark these stat pages and kind of say, okay, I want to come back to this in a year after they've played their first season in at the new school and in that new conference, when whatever change of setting it might be, and see that growth and see how much of that was realized under the coaching staff that obviously recruited all these guys were, or in many cases, it's not like this was a settled thing when they entered the portal. There's competition for Pettiford and for all these other P6 names, I mean to say. And so if you by choosing like ECU in this case, like that's a commitment to that staff. I want to see how that staff brings him along. I mean, he played just over 12 minutes a game. 3-point percentage wasn't the same efficiency as general field goal percentage, but there's gonna be possibly starter type capacity here for him at the Pirates.
Yeah, Memphis got a really good transfer class so far. They have Caleb Mills, Jonathan Pierre, Nick Jourdain, T-Phil Leonard, and like these. This is a good transfer class. And obviously, Memphis has the money to bring in classes like this, but this is pretty significant because they lost a ton. Um, let's see. Yeah, like this is a good class. Obviously, you are probably familiar with Jourdain being at Temple. He's probably the fourth member of this. They also got a guy from UCF, Jalen Young, who's like a solid bench player. But I mean, yeah, Jourdain's probably one of the lesser impact players. But like, are you familiar with him?
Yeah, I mean Jourdain standing at 6'8" at his forward position. He did have 1.1 assist and 1.1 blocks per game in 22-23. Didn't take many threes and wasn't a high percentage at that. But of course, that's not the primary game. I mean, the primary game is going to be those 4.5 rebounds. I mean, it's a guy at Temple who was getting the rebounds to really match his scoring production in points.
Yeah,
And
he's a good
it can be a
defender,
good
and
support. It can be a good supporting player probably at Memphis, especially when I mean, you already contextualized us for us really nicely. Is they lost a lot, the Tigers did, so that I do think that he profiles well to kind of be in that role for Memphis.
yeah, he's a great defensive backup big. They also got Caleb Mills, who was like really good at Houston his freshman year. Played on some bad Florida State teams, but was like still pretty solid. He was probably their best player this year, even though they were pretty bad. Um, but yeah, that is a good pickup. He can really score the ball, can shoot the ball. They also got Jonathan Pierre from Nova Southeastern, the D2 champions, and like he was like really like the biggest like buzz player of the portal. Like he was like he said like 130 D1 schools or whatever reached out to him, which who knows if it's actually true, but like he is pretty good. Like he is super athletic, can really has a good skill set. Like even though he was D2, like no Nova Southeastern is good. like that they could have competed with lots of D1 programs. They went undefeated, scored like 100 points a game. Yeah. And then Tfal Leonard, he's a great defensive player. Like he's looked at like as a pro prospect, like, and that is mainly because of his defense, athleticism. Like he absolutely could have gone to like the Power Six. Obviously, Memphis is sort of a Power Six school in the high major level, but yeah, like he can really play defense. Average 1.6 steals, 1.8 blocks per game. He's an athlete. So, any thoughts about those other guys?
You said it all really well, and I Memphis, because it has the financials, the NIL like swirling around it, like, and just the profile of a P6. Like I start to even like the Tigers honestly start blending into that for me. Like I have to remind myself, yeah, we can include them in the American athletic portion of this episode. It's and to get the Nova Southeastern stud that's going to be something I think that we just keep coming back to during the season, because honestly, it might not be, it could be some overreaction or exaggeration that you look at. Maybe I don't know, it could easily be true, but even if, let's say, the real number that reached out to him in terms of D1 schools, it was like 100 D1 schools, that's still ridiculous. And I can't think of how many players actually can have that to their name where they had 100 schools in their phone and one. So yeah, it's a heck of a pickup for Memphis.
Absolutely. Rice got a few solid pickups in Anthony Selden. I believe he's from Gardner Webb, Noah Shelby from Vanderbilt, and Sam Alajiki from Cal. These are all three like pretty solid pickups. Selden is a solid wing. Shelby didn't play that much at Vanderbilt, but was a pretty highly regarded recruit. Alajiki was like decent on a terrible Cal team as a freshman, or maybe he was a sophomore. Yes, he was a sophomore, but he was still like decent-ish. I mean, they sucked, but he's a solid player, solid pickup for Rice. This isn't some like huge special transfer class, but these are three solid pickups, and it's hard to look over what they've done. Any quick thoughts on Rice?
I think it makes sense for Rice to get. I mean, so not you're not gonna be able to get everybody you want in the portal when you're Rice, but for a number of reasons. One of them being not everybody's gonna get into school, so it makes sense to go after a guy who was able to attend Vanderbilt. You know, Vanderbilt's one of those higher level academic schools in the SEC. Noah Shelby didn't get to prove his high recruiting status based on the minutes with Vandy, but he's from McKinney, Texas. So he gets back to his home state. So I mean that's one that I kind of am going to be looking at, especially. But yeah, Rice maximized what it could do based on all of its I'm not trying to slander Rice here, but based on its constraints, this is a good pull.
Yeah, Rice is a 4-star coming in too. Keanu Dawes, he's been committed for a while. Like, this isn't new news, but like Rice it's a good academic school, so like they can get they have some pull in that area. Um, South Florida, they picked up some guys from Kennesaw State following Abdur Rahim. They got Chris Youngblood, he's a really good one, and then they also got Brandon Stroud and Cation Jennings. Then the other day they picked up North Florida transfer Jose Placer. Um, I'm really intrigued by Chris Youngblood. Like Chris Youngblood, he was like a good recruit out of high school that went to Kennesaw State, and he can like really score the ball. He's a pretty like big guard. Like he is good. So, and any thoughts on him specifically?
Oh yeah, Chris Youngblood was one of the bigger. I mean, I don't want to call him a star because Kennesaw State couldn't finish the upset in round one of the NCAA tournament. But yeah, I got to know Youngblood's name as I was watching Kennesaw State through the conference tournament the Owls had, and I was thinking, I mean, not only does he have a cool name, right, but if he supports it with how he plays. Like, yeah, he is going to be very interesting to track at USF. Has a continuity of course, following his head coach, but and I don't want to turn it from Youngblood unfairly, but Placer is interesting to me. Like, I know he's not going to get the same attention, but going from North Florida to South Florida is a cool move. And beyond that, he's coming off of a senior season. He had exactly 14 points a game. Make it now 3 straight seasons. He's averaged at least 14 points a game. That level of consistency to go with just under 3 assists a game this past season. I think Placer is going to. I think he's going to maybe kind of forge his own name as well. So and he's been available, consistent. He was just a great presence for the Ospreys. He played 23 games in each of the 2 seasons in 2020 and 2021, and then kicked it up to 31 games played this past season. So he was even more of a mainstay this most recently completed season. So I think, like, I guess it's unfair to call it under the radar because I am remembering right. He was all conference at North Florida, right? He had to be. I'm just
Yes,
not fine. I wasn't
2-time.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Multi-time all conference player making a move. So I think, that's interesting to me too, just because sure, it's gonna the Kennesaw State movers, that makes sense. But good to be able to recruit in the transfer portal within the state of Florida as he enters it in his first season at South Florida.
Mm-hmm. Stroud is a really solid defensive pickup as well. He was probably Kennesaw State's best defensive player. No need to go in depth there, but that's a solid pickup. SMU, they got a few high major transfers in Chuck Harris from Butler, Denver Egland from Georgetown, and Tyree Smith from Oklahoma State. These guys were all like not amazing at high majors. Chuck Harris was actually probably the best out of the group. He was like he was actually pretty good. He averaged like 10 at Butler every year, double digits in all 3 years. So that's a guy you're definitely going to take. Anglin didn't really play as a freshman, but was highly regarded in the class of 2022 as one of the best shooters. And Smith is a guy that was decent at Oklahoma State. So yeah, like he's a solid pickup, especially for SMU. He was serviceable in the Big 12.
Just to touch on Denver Anglin briefly, as he has the SMU. He was 4 stars, I think, out of Montclair, New Jersey, and his offers, I mean, were what you'd expect. Miami had an offer in. Like, look at Northwestern put in an offer, Providence, Penn State, UConn, Seton Hall, Stanford got some national attention, TCU. So it's a player who there are plenty of other coaches who foresaw the potential in college. So I think it's intriguing to see how he'll do in Dallas for this SMU's program.
Yeah, he was supposedly like a super good shooter, but shot terribly at Georgetown. But at the same point, he's like 1 year removed from what he was in high school. Like, how much different really is he? So this is definitely a good pickup for SMU. Moving on to Tulane, they got a handful of pretty solid pickups. They got Colby King, St. John's, Asher Woods from VMU, Greg Glenn III from Michigan, Jordan Wood from Howard, and these are all like solid pickups. Tulane isn't like a huge basketball program, so they lost Jalen Cook, but like these are the type of guys that I think they need to get and just try to work with what they can do. King was, I know a lot of people liked him, didn't do much at St. John's, but people liked his potential. Glenn also is an athlete with potential. Woods was solid at VMI as a freshman, and Wood had some solid. He's a big man. He was pretty solid at Howard. You got any thoughts about these guys?
Jordan Wood at Howard, he was definitely a plus big man for them. His freshman season at Howard, he put together 9.7 points a game.
He did play 3 games,
but he played 3 games. But he played
but
3
he
games.
was good when he played.
By saying the good stuff first, okay?
He was like good when he played, and yeah, he's like a shooter too.
Yeah. So
stretch.
He showed. What I'm trying to say is he showed it very early on, and then he kind of returned to that form in his season most recently completed. So it's certainly a guy who showed a lot of promise. I think it's tough for Howard to lose him, but Tulane's getting somebody I think is on his way to realizing that full college potential in Jordan Wood.
I mean, 6'9" shooting big, like that's like a guy that translates up a level, and yeah, Tulsa really need to reload because they lost like everyone on their team to the portal. I don't even know if they kept it. They might have kept like one person, but like they had a massive reload, and it was rightfully so because they were terrible last year. But I think Conkle's like a pretty solid coach. It was year 1. It was rough, but they got Kobe Williams, Keaston Willis, both those guys from Louisiana Tech. They got Isaiah Barnes from Michigan, Chauncey Gibson from Clemson, PJ Haggerty from TCU. And yeah, this is like Williams and Willis are proven guys that Conkle has worked with, obviously. Then the other three are high major guys coming down with lots of eligibility left. So, what are your thoughts on this class?
Yeah, huge class for Tulsa, biggest class that we will go over here in the AAC. And your summary is strong. I think that looking at it's hard. I mean, when you have this volume of a size of a transfer class, hard to say like how each of these incoming transfers is going to have the role change. Like that, they all were to some degree successful at prior school, or at least showed, had the recruiting tape to show the previous staff, promise there. But without adjusting for that, Keaston Willis, yeah, definitely from La Tech, 12.5 points a game, 3.5 rebounds a contest this past season. That should it rise a bit. I mean, at this point, he's going to be in his, what is he going to be up to? He's going to be up to his fifth. Is he going to be in
He's
a
been
fifth year?
around. I maybe I know he played at Incarnate Word before, I think. Maybe yeah, I think this will be his 5th year if my internet wants to work. But I believe this will be his. Yes, he's played 4 years. So
Yeah, Tulsa's gaining. It's going to be a good summer training program and preseason for them, making this all make sense together, all these additions. But it's not. And it's the nature of the transfer portal. It'll come up as we discuss this. Is these aren't like all young kids you're trying to make fit together. They're kids who played with a bunch of different players at times. Maybe if there's a player who's transferred once before, as we've seen, we're talking about Willis here. They're going to be used to having to meet and greet new people and get acclimated. So yeah, Tulsa's got a ton of changeover, but yeah, Willis was the kind of the one I wanted to look at in particular, just based on numbers.
yeah, UAB got some guys in Daniel Ortiz and James White. Two solid pickups. Ortiz was, I believe, he was an all-conference guy at North Alabama in the ASUN, and White is kind of a potential pick as Ole Miss. He didn't really get the minutes, but I think he showed flashes of what he can do. And UAB is Andy Kennedy has really been working with some transfers, so I like both these pickups.
Yeah, James White was 3 stars as he originally committed to Ole Miss, and now off to Birmingham. White had, I'm trying to double check on the interest he had elsewhere. I mean, we talked about VCU
He
earlier,
had
one
some
of the
good.
best A10 programs.
He had a lot of high major
Got a good offer
offers.
for VCU, but then yeah, it was a bunch of high major. Arkansas an offer, A&M, Xavier. So yeah, it's one of those players who is, and you can bet those coaches who offered him originally were trying to get him on the second time around, right? But so that makes UAB a big winner in this, edging out those prior contacts. So good for UAB, and yeah, that good long term play.
UTSA, they're also moving to AAC, and they got some pretty solid pickups in Jordan Ivy Curry, who is a boomerang transfer, Quincy McGriff, solid at Duquesne, Dante Holyman from UTRGV, and Justin Thomas from Milwaukee. Don't have a ton to say about his class. It's just like a combination of solid guys, which UTSA can use to build on. Any thoughts?
Yeah, nothing earth shattering in terms of thoughts here, but UTSA, when you're entering it, I mean, we're talking about half of these schools. It feels like in the American Athletic Conference, we're talking about when you're joining a new conference, because that's the case for a bunch of these. Joining a new conference, you don't want to end up like Loyola Chicago. So they're scouting all these transfers with that style of play in mind, that new conference style of play in mind. So because let's see how it shakes out.
Yeah. Moving on to the Mountain. Wait, no, we're not moving on to Mountain West because we have to talk about Wichita State, who got Bijan Cortez Harlan Beverly, Jacob Germany, and today they got Ronnie DeGray from Missouri. But like this is a good group. Paul Mills, first year. Cortez like played some solid minutes at Oklahoma. Beverly was good at Miami. Is fresh. He was good a few years ago, and he might have got hurt and was never really back to what he was. Germany is coming from UTSA, in fact, and he is a solid big man. And then DeGray did not play a ton at Mizzou this year, but was pretty good last year and also was pretty good in his time at UMass. Any thoughts about this?
Yeah. Yeah, Jacob Germany coming from UTSA. That's interesting to me. Good situation for Wichita State as UTSA comes in the American Athletic. Just pluck one of those top road runners in Jacob Germany. 6'11" from Kingston, Oklahoma. What a presence at forward. 12 points a game. He might threaten. I mean, it's going to be a different kind of competition inside, but he had just over 8 rebounds a contest. I know players who are that close to 10 rebounds a game. You want to get to double life. That might not happen in the American Athletic schedule, but he played 30 games this past season. UTSA is going to miss. I mean, UTSA is going to miss him in the interior going against the top, especially the top. I mean, what we really mean when we talk about adjusting to life in the new league is when you're facing those top schools in your new conference for games that count in the league standings. It's where you're really going to miss reliable rebounders and interior scores.
Yeah, I wonder if Wichita gets Connor Vanover. Did you see that he entered the portal like 2 days ago?
I did. I wonder. I guess can't rule it out. I'm sure there'll be plenty of interest, but I did see what was it? The most popular picture of him might be the one from the Arkansas visit. What was that picture of him next to Musselman? Yeah, that.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like I feel like a lot of people like to hate on Vanover, but like he's actually kind of good. Like he might have been bad at Arkansas, but like a lot of people love Jamarian Sharp, who's like this 7'5" shot blocking big from Western Kentucky that committed to Ole Miss. Like Connor Vanover is basically Jamarian Sharp, and Connor Vanover has an offensive skill set. Sharp does not. Like Vanover can shoot the ball. He has some skill. Maybe there are things he does not bring, but like he's pretty good.
Yeah, go ahead.
Wichita State gets him, that'll be a good pickup. But they haven't got him yet. But
yeah, see, and one thing, it's outsized hate for Vandover. Like, this is just the internet era. Like, I know our platform thrives in the internet. So, like, I can't be like that much of a hypocrite. But like, let's be real. Like, every player, regardless of height, is going to have some kind of weakness. But it's easier to not unfairly, but just like be a bit more sarcastic and poke fun when the guy happens to be 7'5". Like, that doesn't mean it's supposed to be easy. And as long as he's 7'5", you're seeing Vandover use that. I mean, he's getting over 3 blocks a game last season. I'm like, let's ease up on it. Let's ease up on it. But that's I gotta get off my rant. But yeah, I mean, let's just take it easy.
moving on to the Mountain West, where Boise State got some guys. They got Roddy Anderson from UCSD, Cam Martin from Kansas, and Omar Stanley from St. John's. Boise could be good next year. They have Degenhart coming back. They have Max Rice coming back. They have Chibuzo Egbo coming back. And to add in these transfers, like Boise State could be another tournament team. Do you have any big thoughts about these guys?
One thing I do know about Boise State generally is that's an athletic department that's pretty ambitious, and it's not just through football. I mean, Boise State's known for football, but you want to have all boats rise in your athletic department, especially if Boise State wanted to be in the Big 12 someday. The Big 12 is not going to want to make any basketball sacrifices. So I am interested to see, in each offseason how Boise State looks to elevate its program and keep itself in a good spot in the Mountain West. And yeah, Cam Martin is probably like one of the bigger names just because it comes from Kansas.
Yeah, he is intriguing.
Much at all. So he's intriguing.
Intriguing. Was it D2 transfer that was like a D2 All-American, was kind of hurt at Kansas, but like a few other schools in this conference are getting D2 All-Americans that are like straight from D2. And like, how different is Cam Martin from that? He's been D2 All-American and been under Bill Self for 2 years. So
Yeah, it's not. It's one of those where it's almost comparable to coming straight from D2. But oh, hey, by the way, you were playing or practicing or in the same locker room as one of the best staffs, in the country. So
Mhm.
I don't think that's necessarily something that's going to hurt. Now,
Right.
looking to kind of kick off rust and look to go through a season. That's another thing. But yeah, it's going to be. I'm going to be rooting for him to get the sustained production at Boise State.
Yeah, Stanley is also a good pickup. Was pretty decent at St. John's. Anderson also was like put up good numbers as a freshman at UCSD. But Colorado State, they got some guys, including Nate Clifford, Javante Johnson, and Joel Scott. And I really like Scott. He's a D2 All-American, was one of the best players in D2 from Black Hills State, can really rerun the ball, can just really score the ball, has a little bit of skill inside, and can shoot a little bit, but not necessarily what you would call a shooter, but yes, you're probably not super familiar with him. I mean, I'm not super familiar with him either. I can't say I've ever watched him live because the one time Black Hills State actually did play Northwest Missouri State in the semifinals last 2022 March Madness, but that was during our practice time. So we were listening to the game on our run,
There
but
you
so
go.
I did not get to
Yeah.
see him play, but
Okay.
his stats and highlights suggest that he is a very good player, so I'm gonna roll with that.
Listening to the game, I love to hear that. Support radio coverage of college basketball. I'm all about it.
Yes. But Nate Clifford was like a starter at Colorado. Javante Johnson was a starter at New Mexico. And while there are definitely questions on those players about how much really they bring to the table, you add in two good starters from teams that are in close to them in range. So yeah, I think those are two solid gets.
Yeah,
Um
Nick Clifford did play a lot at Colorado. Was never a great free throw shooter, but still, I mean, if he figures that out a little more, there's the scoring. That unlocks a little more scoring upside. So
yeah, he was in the game for his defense. He was borderline atrocious on offense, but
I
he
wasn't
can
gonna go
really play
there. I was
defense.
just gonna try to focus on, maybe tangible
He
plays
he sh- he
he could
shot
improve.
sub 40 from the field, sub 30
Yeah.
from 3, 53% from 2, and had negative 0.4 offensive win shares, which is kind of terrible. But he can play defense. And if Isaiah Stevens is back, this team could be kind of good again. New Mexico, they got some guys in Jamarl Baker, Nelly Jr. Joseph, and Mustafa Amzil. This is a great transfer class, and they have Jalen House and Jamal Mashburn Jr. coming back. They have some good freshmen like New Mexico. New Mexico is going to be good again. I really like Nelly Jr. Joseph. Maybe not as good as Morris Udeze was last year, but he will be close to that. He's a really good inside big. Um, Amzil can he's a talented like scoring wing forward. And Baker is another solid guard that can really fit in the backcourt with House and Mashburn. Do you have any big thoughts about these guys?
A great move for New Mexico, in particular, to get Nelly Jr. Joseph so strong on both ends of the floor. So I would definitely kind of echo that thought. I mean, Junior Joseph, he was just a tick under 15 points a game and just off averaging a double per game and when you look at his 35 games played this past season. So his field goal percentage came out to, what was it, 55%? That's top 50 in the country, Division One. So I'm gonna lose track of which other schools offered Junior Joseph I mean,
It was between New Mexico and SMU.
yeah. So we talked about SMU not too long ago. Big. I mean, it's a big win. That's a big win over a school like SMU. It's an attractive spot right there in Dallas. So yeah, I think that's going to be one that pays dividends for New Mexico in the Mountain West season.
Yes, absolutely. Reese Dixon Waters is committed to San Diego State, which is this is a good pickup. Like, he was good at USC. He was a Pac-12 sixth man of the year. Word on the street was that he was committed to UCLA. So apparently San Diego State was able to get him at the last minute, which is pretty significant. Like, he averaged 10 points a game at the high major level on a tournament team. So yeah, this is a great pickup. Any thoughts?
Yeah, how about San Diego State beating UCLA for somebody? And now again, it's something that we're it's a speculative situation, but yeah,
His role is likely bigger at San Diego State, but still.
still, I mean, still at some point, like UCLA, as one of being one of those brands, like you got to keep it real. Like that's a good sign for a. I mean, again, I always bring this up talking about the bigger picture of these schools, but good. I mean, the Aztecs have to love that. Now they're great basketball brand in their own right. They just had a pretty great March, but if they want to find themselves in the Pac-12 sometime, I mean, inevitably they probably will. But it's good to kind of not put the cart before the horse and get some recruiting wins, get some portal wins against maybe a future conference mate. And yeah, Dixon Waters is probably like one of the more prominent names who was looking to move schools just right there in that region, right there, moving in Southern California. So yeah, it's a good pickup for SDSU on an SDSU team that didn't have to do a ton of reimagining of its program or roster.
Mm-hmm. UNLV, they got some guys. They got the Boone twins, formerly of Oklahoma State. Keelan Boone played at Pacific this year. They're a little different players. Keelan can shoot the ball. Caleb Boone does not really shoot, but Caleb Boone was like all Big 12 this year. He is a super efficient player, just really good on both sides of the ball. Yeah, Keelan is a little more offensive minded, as shown in his shooting numbers, but also a solid defender still. Yeah, both efficient from the field. They also got Jalen Hill from Oklahoma, who is definitely a high major starter player. So, like, these are three good gets for UNLV. Yeah, I mean, what's your takeaway on these three additions? All played in the state of Oklahoma at one point.
UNLV picks up Jalen Hill from Oklahoma, who got plenty of minutes there, but Jalen Hill is originally from Vegas. So that's a great story. Get it coming back around.
Also got the connections with like Kruger and stuff.
It all with that all combined, it all makes too much sense, right? So, and yeah, I mean, Hill was very productive for Oklahoma. So what do you think? Can we even ballpark how much he might even raise that at UNLV? Like, do we think he can?
I mean, I don't know that he'll really see like a huge increase. Like, I think his numbers will go up, but like, he played like 32 minutes at Oklahoma. I don't think he's getting like any more minutes than that necessarily, but I think he can definitely be maybe we see that shooting percentage go up a little bit with maybe a little bit less competition. Any thoughts on the Boons?
Yeah, as a twin myself, I think it's cool. Like you gave the scouting report on their production X's O's. I'm just think it's cool that they're going to be playing with each other. Like that's
yeah. They took a year off, but they're back to playing together.
Yeah, see, they picked that back up again. That's nifty. That's a great story.
Utah State, they got some guys. They got a few guys to follow Danny Sprinkle to Utah State. Darius Brown III was the Big Sky Defensive Player of the Year, solid passer, point guard. They also got Great Osobor to follow. Sprinkle I believe he was the Big Sky Sixth Man of the Year. He is a big man, really could score in somewhat limited minutes. They also kind of got Jackson Grant to follow, was committed to Montana State. Former McDonald's All-American, actually. Like, he was like on the McDonald's All-American team. I don't believe the game happened that year, but like he wasn't a nominee, like he was a selection. Then they got Nigel Burris, the Big Sky freshman of the year, and Max Agbankpolo, interconference transfer from Wyoming. Could really struggled at Wyoming, but he's a former high major player that theoretically has potential. So, and I mean, this is a good class. So, what do you have on these guys?
Yeah, on a Sobor, I like. I mean, being Big Sky six man of the year, that captures a lot of what I'd say. I mean, the step he took from freshman to sophomore season was a great one, and I think. I mean, at 6'8" at Ford, I think he can even be when he's tasked with defending Mountain West players. I think he can even show even more of that defensive potential. But on offense, he already has a great foundation to work from on offense. So, yeah, I mean, that's mentioning one player out of several who are going to be useful for Utah State, to say the least here. Yeah, that's kind of one that I particularly, I mean, I talked about I mentioned the Eastern Washington transfer earlier. It's had to go back to the Big Sky. And of course, a lot of it will be about the Big Sky with the coaching hire that the Aggies made.
Yeah, just a great collection of guys. Yeah, Burris is also kind of intriguing. Big Sky freshman of the year. Like, even though he was on a bad team, like he was really effective when he decided to shoot the ball from three. Was just a good player overall. So I'm interested to see how he translates up a level. I'm also interested to see if Jackson Grant is like good when he also moves up a level or moves down a level. Um, but yeah, this is a very solid class from Sprinkle to get started at Utah State. Wyoming, they got some guys. They took a little bit of a different approach. Last year, they took Polo. They also took Ethan Anderson and Jake Kyman. Like, those were their big transfers, dipping from the Power 6 level. This time, they're just taking guys from all over. They took a cool cut from the Fort Lewis. I really like this guy, and I'll get back to him later in a minute. But Sam Griffin from Tulsa was okay at Tulsa. Tulsa sucked, but as I said previously, Mason Walters, the NAIA Player of the Year, and Oleg Kojenets, who didn't really play at Nebraska, but I major big. But yeah, I love Cott. Like, he is good. Like, he can really create shots. Like, I found a highlight video on him when I saw he committed to Wyoming, and like it was fun to watch. Like, there were some good highlight videos on him. Thank God, because he is good. Like, he can really create his own shot, can really score the ball. Yeah, and he is like, I think he can be all conference in the Mountain West. Like, he is good. He D2 All American on a really good D2 team. So, do you have any thoughts on Cott or really any of these other guys?
I'm really glad that you emphasized Cot for us, and I was just going to look a bit closer at Mason Walters, given that he's coming up from. I want to make sure I get kind of from the Jimmies, right? What his prior institution was? Which spot in sub? It was actually it was the JUCO ranks, right?
No, he was NAI Player of the Year.
Oh, not JUCO, NAI. Yeah. I got my wires crossed with that. Yeah, University of Jamestown, North
Yes.
Dakota. So we talked about a player coming up from North Southeastern who had so many Division One schools interested. I'm sure there was no shortage of schools interested in Mason Walters.
Yeah,
Um,
a little lesser situation, but
yeah,
you like, he was still the best player in AI, and maybe, I mean, he won't put up the same numbers as D1, but like, you still take him. He's certainly a solid get.
and he's been playing. I mean, now I'm not equating NAIA to high school, obviously, because you're still if you're a college basketball player, you're a college basketball player. But like Walters has been doing this since like high school. What was the averages? 21.1 points a game. He was a double guy on a guy in high school. I mean, so many of these D1 transfers, we're gonna be talking about guys who were top of their teams in high school. But yeah, he it seems like this is a great spot for Mason Waters to break through and really show what he can do to a wider audience in the D1 ranks.
Yes, absolutely. Moving to the WCC, Loyola Marymount got a few solid pickups. They got Juice Hill from LSU. They got Justin Wright from NC Central and Lars Thiemann from Cal. What is your first takeaway at this transfer class? They also had Mike Meadows, but then he committed to Cal. So
Yeah, about time we get back to the rest of the West Coast Conference, right? We talked about
yes,
we got Gonzaga
had to
off the
put
top.
Gonzaga first.
Yeah, yeah. But Loyola Marymount had a signature win or two this past season, right? So like, you look at how they stack up in this coming West Coast Conference season, and I wasn't really exactly sure what Loyola Marymount might choose to do in the portal, but Lars is staying at 7-1, and not like there are only so many that we keep talking about the bigs who are going to be a factor in these mid-major portal moves discussions, but Lars, now I haven't gotten to see video of him yet. I haven't pulled back the video yet. So I'm not gonna go to the same analysis of like whether he's, if he has the moves at 7-1, but he's supporting his height with his numbers, 5.5 rebounds a game, roughly just under 10 points a game. He could even see his block count could even stand to improve per game when he just adds more minutes in his season at Loyola Marymount. So that's one that just hard to ignore that size going into Loyola Marymount.
Yeah, absolutely. He is huge, and also the guards they added. I also like Hill was terrible at LSU, but he was good at Murray State. Like I watched a lot of that Murray State team when they were top 25. He was a good player there. Good point guard. And Wright is really good as well from NT Central. Can kind of do it all from the guard position. I believe, yeah, he was a really good shooter on somewhat limited attempts, but could also was solid from inside the arc. Yeah, he's a scoring guard, and that's who you hope to get because they lost Cam Shelton, who was really good. So, Wright's not as good as Shelton, but like he kind of is the same type of player, same type of scorer, really efficient, very solid ad for the Lions. Moving on to San Francisco, they got a guy I really like in Jonathan Mogbo. He is good. Like, you look at his like on-off splits from like when he was on the court versus off the court at Missouri State. Like, it's he is he is good. They also got Malik Thomas from USC, who is kind of more of a potential um, pickup based on he didn't do a ton to high major level, but also has potential. Any thoughts about these guys?
And Mogbo, you took the words out of my mouth. He was so big. He was so big. He was literally big and was a big key influence at Missouri State. Just under 60% field goal shooting in it was 30 games played last season. Just so Mr. Reliable for more I was gonna say Morgan State. It's how you know it's getting late on the East Coast. Missouri State, the other Bears, Missouri State Bears, such a huge presence. And he's originally from Mogbo's from West Palm Beach down in Florida. So he gets to go to the other coast. And can he be a part of a San Francisco team that has because I associate San Fran with being the school that sometimes can push, give Gonzaga a game that's reasonable late night on ESPN too. So like I know Loyola Marymount had that thunder this past season, but yeah, I mean San Francisco is a good brand too, and Mogbo's gonna be part of that this season.
Yeah, I mean, San Francisco was an at-large team 2 years ago, and obviously, that's when they had Todd Golden, Jamari Bouye. I was the biggest fan of that team ever. Like I watched like every single game San Francisco played that year, but they don't have the same thing. But they're still under the same coaching staff ish. Chris Gerlifson was their head coach. He was an in-house hire, so yeah, they're definitely still able to draw talent in. That's for sure. But yeah, Santa Clara also got a solid class. They got Jalen Benjamin from Mount St. Mary's, Adam Ball from Arizona, Johnny O'Neill from American, Francisco Cafaro from Virginia, and Tyree Bryan from Charleston Southern. Um, some of those guys are up in your area. Have a lot. A little. Have you had a chance to watch uh any of those guys specifically? Probably Benjamin and O'Neal.
Yeah, so Johnny O'Neal, the 6'9" forward from American, he can shoot it. He can spin it on the shot, and that goes with his 6.6 rebounds a game. He was sat at just under 45% field goal shooting last season, but that included 39.2% from three. I need to see, not totally sure if it was too high a volume shooting the 3-point shot because I need to check the numbers on that a little further. But yeah, O'Neal is a guy who was going to be a cornerstone of American if he stuck around. I mean, obviously he already was,
Yeah,
but I think
he shot threes at pretty high volume, over 5 attempts a game,
yeah, and
and
he had the
made
liberty
nearly 40%.
he had the liberty to do that at American. And I'm not sure if that'll necessarily be what he's like asked to do as much as O'Neal makes his way over to Santa Clara, but it pro it projects well. I mean, he's versatile. Like is the way I would best capture that. Is say succinctly, he's very versatile. So that's this guy. That's the player I have seen I've seen the most of in this group for Santa Clara.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely can run him as a shooting big with Francisco Cafaro, who's a huge body inside as a five. So, yeah. I also like Jalen Benjamin, who is from Mount St. Mary's, also formerly of UAB. He is a very solid point guard. He can score the ball for sure. Efficiency it isn't the worst. But yeah, he is a solid scorer. Was all MAC this year. Um, all NEC last year when Mount St. Mary's was in NEC. So he definitely has he over 1,500 points scored in his career so far. Definitely a solid pickup. Um, for them, Adama Ball is another guy that I like because I just don't think he ever really got his chance at Arizona. But like moving down a level, like I'm not saying this is gonna happen, but you saw what Brandon Podziemski did this year. He was amazing at Santa Clara, and he didn't really play at Illinois. So I'm not saying at all we'll see that jump, but like maybe a little bit of a lesser breakout, which I think is still in the cards. So moving on to the rest of all the conferences, we can fly through these, but still sort of hit on them. We already covered all the mid plus leagues. But moving to the ASUN, Corey Gibson just brought all of his guys from him from Northwestern State to Austin P. You got DeMarcus Sharp, Jamont Black, Jalen Hampton, Isaac Haney. They also got Jordan Wilmer, who's like the least talented 7-footer ever. But they also got Desi Jones, who Desi Jones is he was like he's the pickup I'm really impressed with because other guys like just follow Gibson like yeah like okay but like Desi Jones is an uh all MAC guard, so absolutely a solid pickup and in a somewhat crowded backcourt it's really a great pull from Corey Gibson. Any quick hits on this Austin P squad?
Your last thought there was exactly mine. Is that Jones is one that particularly is a great one, and I mean, you don't want to make. I feel like we make some assumptions about when a head coach moves from one coaching job to another, especially within Division One. Of course, his players will follow him. Well, it to some extent is a testament to that coach that you have the loyalty of those players. Like, of course, those players want their minute, would like to be assured of at least at a baseline level they can have their minutes not guaranteed, but they feel comfortable with that coach. But you're not going to follow your coach to a completely different school unless you are somewhat bought in, right, to what's going on there. So it's a credit to Gibson as he gets going with the Govs.
Yeah, I mean, this squad won at Northwestern State. No reason why you can't Austin P. Florida Gulf Coast got Dalian Johnson from Penn State, along with Keyshawn Kellman from Princeton. Johnson didn't really do a ton at Penn State, but also played some solid minutes. I think he played more like last year. Um, but yeah, like the connection is obviously there with Pat Chambers. So I think this is a place where he can kind of try to show off what he brings to the table. Kelman also a solid big. Any thoughts on these two guys?
Not extensively, just Florida Gulf Coast at some point, I think Florida Gulf Coast. Now, this is not on the topic of these two players. This is just my reaction to Florida Gulf Coast and on the subject of the portal. Needs some of those Dunk City alum. I got to speak with one Dunk City alum on our platforms not too
Yes.
long ago. It's
It
if
was a
NIL
while ago.
if it was a little while ago now, but I remember it well because Sherwood was awesome. Now,
Yes.
if NIL were in play, like fully above the table permissible in the Dunk City teams era, that would have been a special little wave to capitalize on. I'm not saying that would have made it Florida Gulf Coast would have had a collective powerhouse or something like that, but it's just one of those things I think about sometimes when you look at, as we get into the real meat and potatoes of mid majors, the middle of the mid majors, right? Like it's hard to differentiate some of these classes, and I just wonder sometimes like how that's not, and I guess getting off topic of these two players, but
Yeah.
I wonder about
I,
that
I
when
feel
we talk
like
about
FGCU
Florida Gulf
has to
Coast.
have like decent NIL because they get some solid recruits for sure.
Well, I think the place that college, if you're looking to play college basketball, some history. I guess we're dating ourselves a little bit, but that great tournament team wasn't that old, was it? Or is it the decade anniversary now this year? Was it? It just passed. Oh my goodness, the
I
decade
remember
anniversary.
that like clearly though,
Yeah, yeah,
but
crazy stuff.
yeah. Um, in the America East, Samir Torrance committed to Binghamton from Syracuse. He wasn't amazing at Syracuse. He doesn't really have a ton of offensive skill set, but is more like a pass first guard. I think he can really thrive at Binghamton. There are parts of his game that I do like, and Binghamton has kind of been a little bit of a program on the rise the last um few years. And I mean, Torrance has played at two different high major schools. Like he's probably capable of continuing to, or he's capable of playing at a decently high level. And any quick hits on
Yeah,
Torrance?
so folks interested in this, I mean, like look up Binghamton NIL rumors, like what it's related to
I saw
the
that. I saw that.
the former NIL, the Syracuse NIL booster who
Yeah, he's
is
not
taking
allowed to
himself.
give any money at Syracuse anymore.
That's a whole separate story, but I just think it's a great. Aside from all of that extra, I can't call it extra nonsense because there might be some smoke and fire there. It's nifty for Binghamton to land a player from New York. That's New York State school, right? Syracuse. Just a good pickup for Binghamton in the.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think he was luring him away from Syracuse because he didn't really play it like he would have been a guy that would have probably transferred to Binghamton regardless of circumstances. But it's just kind of funny. I wonder if he actually got any NIL from the Syracuse guy.
It, even just for the purposes of symbolism, it wouldn't be totally shocking to me. But again, I'm not speaking out of an area of background knowledge of that particular insight. But it's college sports could be surprisingly petty. So
Yes. Bryant got Rafael Pinzone, who I thought was actually like kind of good at St. John's. Um, any thoughts on Pinzone?
I'm going to trust that Jared Grasso, our friend Jared Grasso, is he is a portal connoisseur, right? So he has a good eye for players like Pinzone who don't like pop off and like knock socks off stats wise, but like there's
He
enough
was
there
he
that,
was
there's meat on the bone there. There's
productive-ish.
meat on the bone there. There's a lot to work with.
He was not the worst high major player ever. Got solid minutes on a bad high major team, but definitely great get at Bryant. Vermont got some guys as they typically do. They got Shamir Bowes, who was good at Tarleton State. They got Jace Rocamore, who was a solid point guard at UC San Diego. They also got Brenton Mills, who was at Bowling Green, previously a double-digit scorer at Binghamton, so solid. Yes, Bogues is a guard from Tarleton State, two-time WAC all-defensive player, so really brings a lot in defense. Let's see who's other. Yeah, Rocamore. Rocamore is a solid guard. Yeah. Any thoughts on these three?
These three are going to be guys who are certainly going to be in the mix for playing time at Vermont. There's no question. But Vermont, out of all of this trio of American East schools that we'll discuss, Vermont does well in high school recruiting too, just because they own that immediate region. Not that it's necessarily a massive recruiting area for Division I level, but Vermont has had such a grip on the American East that this kind of supplements. I always think the portal's gonna be way more supplementary for Vermont than it is compared to some of these other places in the league where it's going to be like a constant funnel of regular starters. Like sure, Vermont is going to get higher level portal guys on average, but yeah, this group is going to be a great supplement to what's already rolling for the Catamounts.
Yeah. These three all just seem like Vermont guys, honestly. Like they just seem like Vermont players, which would make sense considering they are committed to Vermont. Moving on to the Big Sky, Carson Basham committed to Northern Arizona. Was from the area, was a solid big at Pepperdine. Don't really have any additional thoughts to that, but this is a very solid pickup. Anything on Basham?
No, I think you nailed it. Quite honestly, I have to hand it to you. I have to hand it to you. You nailed it.
Yeah. Portland State got KJ Allen and Trevon Minott. Allen from Texas Tech, Minott from South Carolina, and these guys aren't amazing, but they were both high major players. They didn't play a ton in their respective high major schools, but whenever you're able to get talent at Portland State that was recruited to high major basketball, pretty solid.
Yeah, Portland State it needs to. I mean, maybe Portland State does already do this. Like again, this is me just making generalizations about the schools we roll through these. Like you got to rub off on Dame still being loyal to Portland, right? Like I'm not saying Dame. Now Dame himself is
I'm
maybe the
not
guy,
sure that
but
he would
but
be interested in supporting Portland State, considering his
yeah,
Weber State
given his
Wildcats are
Weber, given his
also in
Ogden,
the Big
Utah roots.
Sky.
Yeah, yeah, given his Ogden roots, I don't know you can get Dame time to be official, but like that Portland is a great area. Portland State it's we're talking about Montana State alluded to Sprinkle's success there. Like the Big Sky is sneaky hard to crack that number one spot. So Portland State went like to your point exactly when you're getting guys who had those high levels of interest from high level schools.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Did,
take them in a
did you
heartbeat.
ever
And
watch did you ever watch Last Chance U?
oh yeah, I saw
Yeah,
more of the
because
football episodes than the basketball
KJ
episodes. Truth be
uh,
told, yeah.
because I know KJ Allen was on that team, so I I have not watched that, but just a
See,
little.
forget trying to get Dame to switch allegiances from Weber to to Portland State. Just have the stardom of KJ Allen be your spokesman for because I mean he
I mean,
that show I miss Netflix. I miss not well, I don't miss Netflix. I miss Last Chance U. It's yeah, recommended
yes.
watching. But if you're watching the Hoop Scoop Media podcast, you've probably seen your fair share of Last Chance U.
Sacramento State got some guys. Duncan Powell from North Carolina A&T, definitely a good athlete. Was all freshman in the CAA. Brandon Betson from Tulsa, formerly of Chicago State, also pretty solid guard pickup. You're probably familiar with Powell. I'm sure you've seen him play. Um, do you have a scouting report for us?
Yeah, Duncan Powell was one of the most impactful players for North Carolina A&T in its debut season in the CAA. Really active on the glass, a guy
He is
who
athletic.
he just puts himself all over the floor, right place, right time. 30 games played. Didn't necessarily play like heavy minutes, 22 and a half minutes per game this past season, but like earned himself more minutes in his future stop here as
Yeah,
he
I
makes
mean, he
his
was a
move over to
former
Sac
high
State.
major recruit in high school, so this is a solid pickup. I still think, he is solid. Where was he committed to? He was committed to Arkansas, I think. I think it was Arkansas, and Arkansas. The coach is at Sacramento State. I didn't even think of that until now, but I think it's David Patrick is his name. It's their head coach. I really like him.
Duncan Powell was 3 stars as he
He
headed.
was like 4 stars. He kind of fell, but like he was like really like highly regarded
Well,
at
and
one
I don't
time.
say 3 stars to make that
No,
sound
like
like
three
a
stars still
slighter.
fine.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
so I'm trying to check. Did he had decommitted from Arkansas?
I think so. Yes, yes, yes. He was at one point committed to Arkansas, and yeah, he's an interesting figure, but personality. But yeah, It's still
Yeah,
yes.
I've been across the CEA. I didn't get to speak to him myself, but it's like I won't like try to testify to that. But
Yeah. But in the Big South, High Point, got to support Alan Huss, Creighton assistant getting started. They got Duke Miles from Troy, Trey Bennett from Lipscomb, Liam McChesney from Illinois State. Miles did not play a ton this year in regards to games played, but he was good when he did. He averaged like 14 points in 6 games. Still averaged like 8 points a game last year when playing a full season or more games at least. Very, very solid player. Will definitely be good at High Point. Uh, Benham was pretty solid at Lipscomb. Um, Solid multi-year producer there. I think he can shoot the ball. He is more of a shooter, and McChesney just a solid rim protector, big. Nothing crazy about his High Point class, but do you have any thoughts on it?
well, High Point needed to make a couple moves, or I wouldn't say need. I mean, it depends on the strength of their. I don't know
They
how much high
they
school
needed
recruiting
to
they
do
did,
some stuff.
but they did need to do some because of the we mentioned High Point outgoing transfers there earlier in the show. So, yeah, I think that when you describe Benham as a shooter, he can. His percentages weren't poor necessarily this past season, and they probably I'm not sure if I don't want to assume he's going to go on an uptick because he's I mean I guess he'll be in the middle of his college career. He's a younger guy. He'll be in his junior season this coming fall,
Yeah.
but he'll be tested against a different. I think he'll going from the SoCon to the Big South.
Yeah.
He'll
It is a
fare he'll
step
fare
down in
fine.
competition,
Yeah.
so you should have an increased role. Um, UNC Asheville got Greg Gant and Josh Banks. Banks is just like a reserve VCU player that is a solid pickup, will maybe get a little bit better moving down the level. But Gant is really intriguing because he is like not that skilled of a basketball player, but like he's also like a high major body, high major defender. Like when I watched him play at Providence quite a bit, and he is a limited skill. Like it's never like you don't look at him and say like, oh, he just doesn't have the physicality to belong in high major. He's just like not a good player. But like he is a very plus defender. Definitely a great little mix with Drew Pember because Pember's going to be scoring all the points. They just need a guy like Gant to come in and play some solid defense. I also would think his offensive efficiency would increase a little. But like he started a lot of games at NC State this year. So like as he has his obvious downsides, he also has some upsides that make him a really intriguing pickup at this level. Anything to add?
Yeah, I don't want to overly switch gears on you, but I have to issue a correction when I realized right as I was Trey Benham going from Lipscomb to High Point. Lipscomb's in the ASUN. I said SoCon. I meant to say
Yeah.
ASUN. I meant to say
I
ASUN
I
there.
completely missed that, but Lipscomb is an ace, and I still
Strike it
think
from
he'll
the
get an
record.
increased role though. I still think he
Yeah.
will get an increased role.
So
But
the,
but
the
moving
point the
back
point
to
yeah,
Gant.
yeah. Yeah, your description of Gant, I trust your description of Gant, and he's joining a UNC Asheville program that is on the upswing, and you got to see him a good bit in those Big East days at Providence. So that's great. It was great to hear your assessment there. But I yeah, it's just I think he can like the combination at some point. The fit's going to be there at some point, right? Like I do think it's gonna piece together for him as he heads now into his third collegiate stop, and I'd love to see it all just all come to a well-rounded season for him.
Yeah, it'll just be great for him. He doesn't have to do anything on offense with Pember there, and he's a plus high major defender. Like he is a very good high major defender. He'll be great in the Big South in that
Yeah,
respect.
yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah,
He'll be able to do that job real well.
Winthrop has consistently been one of the best programs in the Big South, and they're reinforcing that with transfers and Alex Timmerman, KJ Doucette, and Nick Johnson. Timmerman, did you get how chance to watch him at all in Bucknell? Um, Did have you?
Unfortunately not as much just because of being on Bucknell, but no, I mean he deserves a lot of credit.
He's a very skilled big. Like he can't really shoot it, but like he has some good post moves, can pass the ball somewhat decently from the highlights I watched. Doucette is a D2 transfer, put up some good stats at I think it was Albany State. I want to say, not 100% sure on that. Nick Johnson is also a solid player at New Hampshire. Let me pull up his averages. My um let me okay, there we go. Maybe. Yes, he was all America East this year. Percentages are not great from the field, but he is a solid defender, can still score the ball. Very solid pickup for Winthrop, all three of them.
I
And
love to see Winthrop really flex his stats top of the Big South by getting a number of good portal entries from a variety of places again and from Bucknell and beyond. Yeah, it's very much indicative of Winthrop's continued being a good spot relative to his league mates.
yes, moving to the Big West, Hawaii got Justin McCoy, who was pretty bad at North Carolina and Virginia. I don't know if bad's the right word. He just didn't play a lot. He's not a high usage guy, but like moving down a level, like I don't have a ton to say on him, but like I think it's just a name to watch. I'm just really interested to see how he does at Hawaii, personally. Anything on McCoy for you?
Yeah, it's gonna be, when you're transferring to Hawaii, like sure you have at least one anybody who's transferring to Hawaii, like I'm just saying it's a general matter, you have at least one season of college basketball under your belt, but you haven't gone to college in Hawaii yet. You haven't gone to school in Hawaii yet in most cases. So yeah, it's gonna be fun to watch how he puts it together. Maybe despite all transferring schools is a big change, but I can't imagine transferring to like Hawaii, just everything that comes with that. Like you're in Northwest Missouri, Austin. Like you, if you transferred to Hawaii, would you be locked in? I think you would be locked in. I know you you're a dedicated student athlete, and just yeah, as is the case for McCoy. But I'm just saying, like, think about the person and the player. Big move for him.
Yeah, quite the change. Hawaii would be a fun place to live. Um, UC Santa Barbara, like I really want to talk about this class because I really like this class. They got Johan Traor from Auburn, uh, Zach Clements from Kansas, and Ben Stolzberg from Creighton. And like Traor, like I just want like he was like a consensus 5-star recruit last year. Like maybe he wasn't ready to play at Auburn, but like he didn't get that much worse in like a year that he's now like some terrible recruit. And kudos to UC Santa Barbara because they can really recruit for the level that they're at. But like this is a huge get. Like he's gonna get every chance to show what like show how good he can be. And same with Clements. Like Clements was also didn't do anything in Kansas, but like he was a top 50 recruit and was been coached by Bill Self for 2 years. Like I bring up like the staff he's been under, like that can't hurt. And then yeah, like they had a really good front court last year in Miles Norris and Andre Kelly. Both of them are gone, but like there's a potential that they don't skip a beat here with these guys. There's also a potential that these guys just aren't good because we haven't seen them be good, but definitely have a chance. And they got AJ Mitchell back. He's a really good point guard. Add in Ben Stolzer from Creighton, who I liked at Creighton. I wish we would have kept him around for the long term, but can't blame him for going back home to California. And yeah, he's a scorer that will fit well in the system. Like I really like this Gauchos portal class.
The Gauchos, man, can't count them out. Can't count them out. Well, I want to say can't count them out in March because I was trying to roll with them past Baylor there earlier. That was
Yeah.
I was on the right track in terms of those high seed I should say those low seed upsets. But anyway, the Traore, yeah, that's the one that I especially like it's not like a player irreversibly regressed just in one freshman season coming over originally from France, playing at Auburn. Like it, obviously Auburn has a great infrastructure, but it's a tough assignment. Like as a freshman navigating your true freshman season, getting not quite 10 minutes a game, still shot 40%, didn't shoot, I don't think, a ton. So yeah, it's gonna be a situation where UC Santa Barbara, I hope UC Santa Barbara, for its sake, can hold on to Traore. Itself can kind of keep him. But I hope it's not a situation where he gets tampered with down the line, because I'm pretty sure he's going to
Well,
live up to his
he's not going to be able to transfer again
well, not
unless he
well,
wants to
not
sit out.
not with immediate eligibility, at least.
Yeah. So
Right.
yeah, he just wasn't ready at Auburn this year. That's kind of the bottom line. But you give him a year, give him 2 full years in college weight rooms, he will hopefully be better. Um, yeah. Any thoughts on other guys?
Traore was a story for me, truly. And
Yeah.
that's not discredit the other guys, but yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah. Treyor is also the guy that I'm really looking to see all of them. UC Santa Barbara, they run a good program, but moving on to Conference USA, we have some guys to touch on, and Louisiana Tech, they got a solid portal class. They got Jordan Turner from Baylor, Devin Reeve from Louisville. Both those guys are guys that didn't do much at the Power Six level, but were at the Power Six level, so that's something. Daniel Bacho is a guy like I really like. I know like he kind of fell off down the end of the stretch, but like a few games when I saw him, I really liked him. Like I thought Grant McCasland should have taken him back. So this is a great pickup. They also got Talik Chavez, who is a high volume shooter from Charleston Southern. Um, what are your thoughts on this class? Bacho is absolutely one of my favorite pickups of the portal. Honestly, like I think he's kind of good.
yeah. So for La Tech, I again we agree too much, because this needs to be an embrace debate podcast now. But Bacho, he had a span for Texas Tech where there was a time of year where he was especially impactful. I mean, he had a good day against Creighton. He had a good day against your Blue Jays.
It was
Was it
probably towards the
17
beginning of the
points?
year when he was the best, if
Yeah,
I
but
remember
he dropped.
correctly.
Daniel Bacho dropped. It was 21 points against Ohio State in the Big East Big 12 battle. Followed up with 15 against Georgetown. Not that Georgetown's the the greatest defense to be dropping it against, but no, like, and in the Big 12 going like it was just like, yeah, that what you're alluding to. In the Big 12 didn't figure him out or anything. It just he wasn't the same 6'11 dominance that he was in non-conference play. So as Daniel Bacho heads over to Louisiana Tech, he's going to be Conference USA's problem, because they're going to get that December version of him, I think, more times than not.
Yeah, he actually played Louisiana Tech this year. Um, he had 9 points, 7 rebounds, and 6 blocks. 6 blocks is impressive. Season high for him. So yeah, they must be familiar with him in that respect. So yeah, certainly a solid get, actually a really solid get, efficient from inside the arc. I am a big Bacho fan. Can block the shots, can rebound the ball. Like this is an outstanding pickup for them. I really like Bacho. But yeah, the other guys are solid too, but nothing major to say about them. New Mexico State, they are in Conference USA now. I almost kind of forgot about that, but they got some guys in Brandon Suggs, Clarence Jackson, and Jalen Jackson Posey. My favorite of the three is probably Suggs. If I had to pick one, coming from UCF, formerly of why am I blanking on where Brandon East Carolina? But yeah, I liked him at East Carolina. Was also a solid player at UCF. But any thoughts about this New Mexico State incoming portal class?
Is Suggs, he more recently was at UCF, unless I'm
Yes, yeah, he's transferring from UCF, but he played 3 seasons at East Carolina.
right. So the majority of his tape is from the East Carolina era. But yeah, Suggs in his season at UCF, it wasn't the same scoring as his time at
Also
ECU,
moved up a huge level though,
but
like
it's yeah, I
team
mean
wise.
yeah, it's I mean he like, again, you have to add the caveat, if he asked to do the same. No, he wasn't asked to do the same kind of role. So still had what turned out to be his best field goal percentage in a season of his career, 46.8% from the field. So he just adjusted quite well to the situation at UCF.
Yeah. Other guys are good as well. Jalen Jackson Posey was a WAC 6-man of the year 2 years ago, and Clarence Jackson was a really good shooter at Jacksonville State. Was formerly Wichita State. So he should be a grad transfer. I don't know if he would be able to get a waiver, but pretty good offensive player, solid class. I really like Jason Hooten for this hire. So, Western Kentucky got Brandon Newman, who was like a good player at Purdue. So they probably don't have the same recruiting that they had under Rick Stansbury, but Steve Lutz is this is a good pickup, and he's getting him right away. So, hats off to Steve Lutz. Any thoughts on this pickup?
Yeah, good for the Toppers. It's a good move for the Toppers. Brandon Newman will come in right away, I think, and be a good presence for a team that I think is just one of the better brands in the conference. You look at, I mean, I don't know that Newman necessarily, I wouldn't call him, Purdue obviously had its season end the way it did, and like all the big names of Purdue, like it's easy to lose track of Newman. He played just under 18 minutes a game.
He was like good at Purdue.
He was plenty good.
He wasn't just like a high major afterthought that just had to transfer down. Like he
Yeah.
absolutely could have stayed at Power 6 level if he wished to. So,
But I think I like that from Brandon Newman though. Like, go ahead, bet on yourself. Kind of cliche goes like that. That has some meaning though when you're like not just riding on the laurels of necessarily being in the P6. Go, go where your heart's pulled and where you feel like you have the belief in yourself to go make the maximum impact. So yeah, I mean that applies to many of these guys. It's a big leap of faith to put yourself out there in the portal. So yeah, congrats to both sides here for Newman and WKU.
If I'm not mistaken, they also got Charleston transfer Babacar Faye earlier today. Any quick hits on him?
Yeah, I'm like slightly surprised that he left Charleston, but I don't think it's like necessarily a bad move. It worked out that he um ended up being able to head to a quality program. He was primarily like a role player for Charleston, just about 15 minutes a game, but when he did shoot, he was efficient. I'm just obviously I have a great impression of Charleston and the way Pat Kelsey does things. So he doesn't lose a ton into the portal, or at least when it's like a guy who's on track for more minutes. But that says something about the recruiting win that took place there with WKU.
Yeah, this is an excellent transition because up next we have the Colonial Athletic Association and we have Charleston leading us right off the bat with a 4-person transfer class so far of CJ Fulton, Bryce Butler, Kobe Rogers, Frankie Policelli. This is a good transfer class, and Pat Kelsey has proven that he's getting like Bryce Butler, Kobe Rogers from non-D1 levels. Like this is what he does. And also like Fulton is a very solid point guard. Can really pass the ball from Lafayette. Policelli is also he was good at Stony Brook. Definitely
Frankie Buckets. You got to call him Frankie Buckets.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, interconference transfer, I guess. He's pretty athletic, I'd say. Is that correct?
I would say he was arguably the face of Stony Brook in its first season in the CAA. Like Stony Brook had names it could turn to, but Policelli he kind of became the name I think the existing CAA schools started to get to know more quickly than not. So it's absolutely an assertion of dominance in the conference that Charleston's able to pluck him from SBU.
Yes. Yeah, the D2 guys, Bryce Butler is really good. Like these guys are going to be guys you're going to want to remember.
D2 as well. Kelsey's a D2 portal recruit masterclass. We knew that.
So. He'll get guys from wherever. Delaware. I'm gonna let you talk about this because just give me the rundown in their transfer class.
So going into this offseason, even prior to Jameer Nelson Jr.'s portal entry, Delaware knew it had to be very active in the transfer portal. The UD's big issue as it was trying to defend that conference championship the prior season was just a complete lack of depth behind the top 4 starters, let alone the starting 5. And once Nelson officially entered the portal and wound up committing to TCU, the emphasis went on surrounding around Jair Davis, who originally transferred from Providence into Delaware. I mean, Davis is a Delaware native, so he had a homecoming to UD, and so I'm losing track even of how many of these players played with Jair Davis in his AAU. I don't know why I couldn't think of his AAU team, but it was, I believe, Zion Bethia and Niles Lane overlapped with. I need to. It's been anecdotal evidence. It's been discussed here in Newark. It's been discussed.
That seems like it would line up.
And yeah, and so Davis has kind of become like a great magnet for Delaware as it looks to draw from the portal. And its first pickup, Tyler Hauser, made a lot of sense for Delaware because Hauser's a source of size and just brings a lot more height to Delaware, maybe brings some of the rebounding stress off of Christian Ray for UD. So Gerald Drumgoole, a scorer from Albany, Hauser and Drumgoole both made a lot of sense. VMI's big man and Drumgoole being one of Albany's scorers more on the perimeter. Niles Lane is the name more folks might know from a higher level program, higher level recruit originally. So that's I'm going to make myself sound like a fool here because I just don't want to misrepresent. It's been so many transfers coming into UD and who at least have taken visits and been discussed. I think Davis has that AAU overlap with multiple, to say the least.
Okay. Xander Rice to Monmouth. This was an obvious pickup as his father is King Rice, the Monmouth head coach, but still notable because he was like an all-Patriot guy that they were able to get from Bucknell. So very, very solid guard pickup for them. Do you got anything to add in him?
As a coach's son, and I'm a big King Rice fan, so as a coach's son, I trust that Xander Rice is going to be, he's going to handle everything the right way at Monmouth, playing for his dad. King's a really good interview, a really good guy to talk to. So I think, if he takes after his pops, he's gonna be just fine. And Monmouth struggled early in its first CAA season and then came around a bit. So I'm interested to see how it looks for the Hawks in the year 2.
Yeah, well, that's what happens when you lose everyone good in your team and don't decide to recruit from the portal. So
I just spent all this time praising Coach Rice, and you're like, actually,
no,
well,
I liked what he did.
Sure.
I really liked the teams he built up Monmouth, like Papas, Reynolds, Walker Miller, those guys. That was a good team. But then they just they lost everyone. Well, let's just get no one from the portal to make up for it and bring back no one good. So they had some good players towards the end of the year, though. But I'm a big KJ Jenkins fan. I was a big KJ Jenkins fan in New Mexico. He can shoot the ball. I'm not sure how he will be because I presume he'll be like UNC Wilmington's, where he transferred to. He'll be like their go-to scorer, which I'm not sure how much of that can be because New Mexico is primarily like a shooter, a bench shooter, but he can really shoot the ball. I really like this pickup. Anything to add in him?
Yeah. Plenty of reason to be optimism for the reasons you just described, and I would just add UNCW is going to more likely to not do well in integrating Jenkins because UNCW is annually going to be in the CAA's Final Four in the conference tournament. It's a well-oiled machine there, and it's a team that wants to keep a very, very passionate rivalry with the College of Charleston. I'd say I think UNCW's has great basketball fan support. UNCW has a great home arena atmosphere. And UNCW does not want to get forgotten as Charleston kind of is the darling of the CAA nationally lately.
Yes. Horizon, no Reynolds. He had a short stint at Wisconsin this offseason, but then stayed in the state to go to Green Bay, which, I mean, if you can get a guy that Wisconsin took, then sure, take him. Obviously, there's the connection there with Sundance Wicks, the head coach at Green Bay, was the assistant at Wyoming. I'm not sure where Reynolds is from, so that makes sense. They also got D2 All-American Rich Beyer from Rockhurst, who can really scored a ball, really solid player. So these are 2 good pickups from a team that was atrocious last season. So, any thoughts about these 2 guys?
I think as we open up our discussion of the Horizon, you you have you're accurate on those kind of reports. And in Green Bay, you talked about Green Bay on which episode, I'm going to lose track of which episode we discussed and the changes needed there. And
Yeah, we discussed because they fired their coach like midseason.
yeah, yeah, and it was apparent to us that that was all
They,
what
they
begins the
were they
process
were
of,
bad.
yeah, it's a rebuild. So these players are going to be, they know what they're signing up for, but yeah, it's gonna.
And
I'm expecting them to possibly become the go-tos pretty soon for Green
yeah,
Bay, right?
I mean these are dudes. These are two players that far and away would have been the best player on their team last year.
Yeah.
So, Robert Morris, I got Justice Williams and Marquise Hastings. Williams was a high recruit that did not do much at LSU in his time there, but still possibly has potential. And Hastings is a big man from Western Michigan. I believe he averaged a lot of rebounds. He can really rebound the ball. So that's kind of what you're getting from Hastings, a good rebounding big man. Um, Anything to add on these two?
I don't have a exceptional amount to add other than in general, Robert Morris did lose. We talked about it very early on in the show. Robert Morris lost. It
Cheeks.
was, yeah, it was right. So it was important that they have some bounce backs in the portal in that regard. And yeah, Hastings especially is a name that sticks out for me. He was a just what a rebounder he was at Western Michigan, right? Like what was it? He wasn't far off double-digit rebounds a contest.
He was not. He yes, averaged 9.3 rebounds this year, 8.8 last year. Solid on both ends, offensive and defensive rebounding. So yes.
Yeah,
Also
and he
Williams, yes.
passed the ball decently too. So I think he's gonna be yeah, a good ascender for Robert Morris. He'll probably lean on some of those horizon opponents he has in the interior even a bit more than he did in the MAC. So
Mhm. I'm
we'll
also
find out soon.
interested. I'm also interested to see if Williams kind of comes back to what he was supposed to be as a recruit. But Youngstown State is just on a roll. They had a great year, fell up short of the tournament, but they rebounded. They got Brett Thompson, Tennessee Tech, Ziggy Reed from Merrimack, and DJ Burns from Murray State, who all are three very solid gets. Um, yes. Do you get to watch Ziggy Reed much at Merrimack? I know you're familiar with them.
I still have to get to campus at Merrimack sometime, but I do get to see some of the NEC and Ziggy Reed. He's from Baltimore, so he's from not too far from my sweet spot. Over 14 points a game. Uh, Also as a forward, you know, like he scores in some way. Like his efficiency is like a strong shooting player from the perimeter, but in reality, his rebounding numbers remind you, hey, he's a really steady presence at forward. 4.1 rebounds a game. He has really good active hands on defense at his position, just over one steal a game this past season. And yeah, I'd say that I'm looking forward to, and I'd say it's about we've talked about Merrimack a few times. Like he might even just find a new level to his game when he's playing for, yeah, a program that's on the upswing and it gets to play for a fully Division I postseason eligible. Like I hate how Merrimack got stuck with the reclassification process. So,
Yeah, it's just a
so
stupid rule.
yeah, I take every chance I can to bring that up again and remind us of like, hey, this is it's a play. But yeah, Ziggy as a player himself is yeah, he's gonna be a good payoff in the portal.
Yes, DJ Burns also a strong rebounder from Murray State. Was a big part of that team last year that made the tournament. And Brett Thompson is a solid guard from Tennessee Tech, averaged over 12 points, shot over 40% from three. So some solid pickups there. In the MAC, Iona got some guys. They got Aiden Tratut from Harvard, Joel Brown from Cal, and Terrell Williams from Southern. These are all solid pickups. And Tobin Anderson's stop at Iona, or yes, Iona. Brown is intriguing. Coming from the high major level at Cal, even though Cal was barely a high major, but Yeah. Any quick thoughts on these three?
Yeah, Iona's going to be a favorite team to watch. I mean, it already was with Patino for different reasons, but now, yeah, Iona's going to be. Who are we? We can't even question Tobin Anderson, right? Before
No.
he coaches his first game at Iona. So, and again, not to rehash prior episodes, but what he's done in the portal, no shock. He was on his way to getting a job like this before all the
Yeah,
hubbub and the big
he's won
tournament.
everywhere he's been.
He was on track. Yeah, yeah, yeah. He's a winner. He's a winner, and it's no surprise that these kind of players he's picked up this offseason want to follow a winner.
Yes. Ryder got TJ Weeks from UMass. Very solid pickup, 4-year player at UMass. Redshirted, well, medical redshirt 1 year. His freshman year, actually, he was like really good his freshman year before he medically redshirted. But he's been a solid veteran at UMass over the years. So absolutely a good pickup for a school like Ryder. Any quick hits on this?
Yeah, very, very solid to get a multi-year starter. Riders looking to crack itself from, kind of catapult up from the middle of the Metro Atlantic standings. And yeah, this can be that kind of impact transfer portal signing to
Yes.
do that.
Siena got a Dan's team camera interview alumnus, Sean Dewar Gordon. Not sure if he will be eligible, but he is a solid. I think he's like a guard forward, kind of a wing ish. Pretty athletic. I mean, what do you think of this pickup?
And time is flying. I'm not misremembering that. I'm pretty sure I got to speak with Drew Gooden as he was coming out of high school. He was a recruit at that time, right? A high school recruit.
I don't even know if he was committed yet to Missouri.
Did, now I don't want to. Somebody's going to go back in our archives and check this. I don't. He didn't announce his commitment to Missouri with us, but I knew
No,
Missouri was in the mix for him. And he's played 2 seasons at Missouri. He's now most recently been at Austin P. And so he's like gradually been getting point where now he's like making that full return to New York and getting to Siena. The Siena Saints get good support, good home venue. Definitely like a regularly competitive Metro Atlantic school. I lost track. I'm really reacclimating myself to DeRugadan because I lost track. I would have thought he was still at Missouri. To be quite honest with you, I lost when he departed Missouri. What were his numbers?
he didn't do that much.
He just didn't get that much of an opportunity. That's why I lost. That's why we lost track of him.
Yes.
But he got to kind of find himself again in his game at Austin P with those nearly 12 and a half points a game. Really strong with rebounding, from the as he kind of I think I knew him as a guard when we spoke with him, and he's
Yeah,
listed at
kind,
forward
kind
with
of
Austin P.
kind of in the middle.
Yeah, he can be hybrid for sure, and he got 6 rebounds a game for Austin P this past season. So yeah, Siena lost at least one name to the
They
portal.
lost
We talked about
JV
how
and
them.
McCollum.
Yeah, we talked about McCollum, right? So I think I think DeRuganen, because he has that positional, like he can be a rebounder scorer. It's a good reaction to losing McCollum is to pick up Sean DeRuganen.
Yeah. Moving on to the single A MAC. Akron picked up some solid point guards in Caleb Thorne and Shama Scott. Nothing too major to touch on there, but two solid gets, I suppose. Anything about them?
Not especially. I have a hard time getting a read on Akron as a program because they finished in
They
the
were good.
MAC. They were pretty good. They were good, but it wasn't. Now my notes on Akron crashed.
Let me pull up. They were towards the top of the conference standings. They were 13-5 in conference.
Yeah, 20
Third.
20 win season. That's so. I mean, there's
They made
momentum
the
to take into
tournament 2 years ago. They almost beat UCLA 2 years
In
ago.
addition to that, it was a good game against Kent State. That's where the MAC tournament ended for Akron. A competitive game against the number 2 seed Kent State. So Akron had all that to build on and converted on that here with those names in the portal.
Yes, Bowling Green, they got a new coach, and to follow him, they got Jason Spurgeon. Jason Spurgeon following Todd Simon from Southern Utah to Bowling Green. Solid big man, 10 points a game, 6 rebounds. Pretty efficient player. Yeah, that's just a solid pickup there. They also got Trey Thomas, who played minutes at Vanderbilt. He was in the rotation. They also got PJ Edwards, who I believe was a freshman at UCF. So 3 very solid pickups for Bowling Green, and off to a good start in the Todd Simon era.
No, that rings true, and I think especially with Spurgeon coming in, that's a good spot for him to head to the Falcons. Take a look at what he got done at Southern Utah, 10 points and 6 rebounds a game, and he played almost 40 games this past season. Real workhorse. This past year, nearly 2 blocks a game. It's a good two-way player. Good two-way player all around.
Kent State has picked up Reggie Bass and Tym Freeman. Reggie Bass was a MAC Rookie of the Year at Central Michigan. So whenever you get the best freshman in conference and you're able to keep him in conference, but draw him away from his team, it's pretty solid. I feel like there's a lot of in-conference MAC transfers. Like, have you observed that? Like, Caleb Thornton is one, and there were a few other good ones last year. I just feel like it's a common thing to happen.
Oh, I love league dynamics like that. If the schools have a similar institutional profile, they're all reasonably kind of packed together, good parity, like that can be one of those things that happens.
Yep. Freeman, also another guy from UCF coming to the MAC. Solid pickup. Ohio got Sharif Mitchell and Ike Cornish, 2 high major bench players. Like, might as well take a risk on them. They weren't Mitchell, I know from Creighton. He's a really good defender, really good on-ball defender. Can really put the clamps on you. Offensive, it's still been working on, but he showed some improvements this year. He shot the ball well at times this year. So yeah, I'm intrigued. I'm really interested to see how he does, because he really plays with a lot of energy, and I think he could be a good player at a school like Ohio. Cornish also has a lot of eligibility left. Might as well take a shot on him in Ohio. Any thoughts about those two at all?
Yeah, it's even less about necessarily those two in particular, although Sharif Mitchell is I think a pretty recognizable name, right? I mean, you know that well. Ohio I got to see Ohio play in Newark, and so my anecdote on that is Ohio looked really good that one evening. Now I know it wasn't exactly an upset that Ohio played that well, but just another team that I think isn't far off necessarily being in the mix to threaten Kent State, right? And like these pieces, the idea would be that these pieces bring Ohio closer to that end game. But I mean, it was just a little non-conference was pretty good for Ohio. I know that they threatened Michigan in a pretty well-known non-conference game down November. And then MAC play, they kind of got closer to 500, just over 500 in the finish in the conference standings. So are these with these additions, like it's similar to the additions we talked about elsewhere in the MAC? Like how's the middle league going to separate itself? Is the question for me.
Yeah. Yeah, Ohio has been a pretty solid program over the years. They do lose Dwight Wilson, who was really good. But yeah, I think these pickups are good for Ohio to look towards the future. Moving on to the MEAC, only one MEAC transfer we're going to touch on is Dom Campbell going to Howard, who didn't play a lot at Notre Dame, but at one point I remember he was really blowing up as a recruit. It's like he's like a big, like he's not like a big man, but like he's like a big-bodied forward. He like really hardly played at all. It was like a foul machine this year, if I recall. For some reason, I feel like he fouled out of one game like abnormally quick. Yes, he played 7 minutes against North Carolina and fouled out. But yeah, solid pickup. I think it's another prospect. Like, it's worth taking a shot, and he's 1 year removed. And any thoughts on Campbell to Howard?
well, since Howard lost Wood in the portal, you look at, well, what would the Bison do in response? Howard is among MAC programs that, arguably has the biggest combination of factors to offer, on and off the floor. Howard has potential, and Campbell is going to be. I mean, this is a spot where he can realize his own potential, right? Like we didn't get to see much of him in so far in his college career, so I'm not going to pass excessive judgment on him. But that MEAC, as long as Howard stays in the MEAC, Howard should be in the mix to take the 1 seed in the conference tournament. Like I know it's a great location. It's a very crowded recruiting market, but Howard has kind of like about the academic side of Rice. Howard's got a very strong academic profile, and I think that academic profile helps, when you're getting the guy coming in from Notre Dame.
Yes, absolutely. Moving on to the Missouri Valley, Belmont picked up some high major down transfers in Will Shaver, Malik Dia, both with lots of eligibility left, both unproven, but both have potential. I like both these pickups based on potential. Let's see. Any thoughts about these two?
As the Belmont Bruins continue to kind of lay down their roots in the MVC, I think it's important that they, there are some really, really, really strong existing brands in the MVC. Belmont had built itself up for that. Yeah, I mean, Shaver can be. It's in some other games where it's like one of his names. I'm sorry, where you just have hardly gotten to see him play in college, right? So like, it's kind of like he gets a. I mean, I assume he'll take a red shirt, right? He maintains that freshman eligibility after this transfer. In the case of Shaver coming in from North Carolina.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt he got 3 games, couple minutes in each game, and I'm not exactly sure how he's going to fit with Belmont, other than necessarily, a good starting point being 6'10" at your forward spot entering your redshirt freshman year is it's a good situation. So, he's probably going to draw some of Belmont's really important big one-on-one defensive assignments.
Yes, Dia also has some size. But moving on to Bradley, Bradley also kind of did the same style. They got some high major. I guess Nevada isn't necessarily high major, they're more mid plus, but still decently highly regarded recruits bouncing back. Although in this case with Bradley, they're getting guards in Amari Ellis, Trey Pettigrew, Ellis from Marquette, Pettigrew from Nevada. I think these are 2 pickups, and like Pettigrew wasn't even that bad in Nevada. Like he wasn't amazing, but he averaged like 3 points a game on freshman on a tournament team. There are worse things you can do. Any thoughts about these? What Bradley's been doing?
The Bradley Braves, we talked about much earlier in the program, a loss to the portal Bradley had. So again, we talk about teams, how, your plus and minuses as you go, how did the scales tip by the end of the portal's closure? And Trey Pettigrew comes from coming from Nevada, like I trust a lot of players coming from Nevada. That's been a program that got built up in recent years. Pettigrew played it was on, maybe a little over a quarter per game, 25% of each game action. He could stand to see his field goal percentage rise a bit, but he did drop maybe 3 points a game, and he can settle. I mean, being from Chicago originally, Pettigrew heading towards Bradley, I think he's probably going to find a great comfort there and kind of put down roots as a student athlete. And yeah, Bradley is. I do think it's a fair comparison. Bradley and Belmont being kind of in similar boats, similar additions in this portal cycle.
Yes, Drake got Ethan Roberts, the Patriot League Freshman of the Year. Very solid pickup for them. He is a kind of a wing. He can really shoot the ball, can just really score the ball in general. Very solid scoring pickup from Drake. Any thoughts on Roberts?
Yeah, we talked about Drake as being a team that should have would have had that NCAA first round game, right? So you respond in the following offseason in the portal again, Ethan Roberts. Roberts, yeah, you're your thoughts on him, I think, are proper. He's gonna be an influence for Drake in his first season with the Bulldogs.
Yes. Illinois State got a few guys, most notably Jordan Davis and Brandon Lieb. Davis is like a good pickup. Like he was a high major starter, I believe. I don't know if he started the whole year, but I know he started for at least, yeah, he started about half the games, averaged 20 minutes a game, 5 points. He wasn't amazing by any means at Wisconsin, but like he's a decent high major bench player. And if you get that guy at Illinois State, it's pretty solid. Lieb didn't really play at Illinois, but is a big man. I think he's like 7 foot. Yes, he's 7 foot. So might as well take a shot if you're a school like Illinois State.
Yeah, it's a recurring theme, right? Like there are more 7 foot players out there than you realize, right? But we didn't get to see them playing on some of these P6 rosters, and you're gonna see a Lieb hit the floor for Illinois State. I love the intrigue of an Illinois State move. That intrastate move is interesting to me, of course. And I mean, Lieb is from Deerfield, Illinois, so he's just going to touch them all in the land of Lincoln. But he actually, I mean, it's not as if he took a ton of shots, but the shots he did take, they were in that near range. He hit them just under 60% from the field this past
It
season.
was he's 7 for 12 overall in this year, so was not necessarily taking shots. But I didn't necessarily play, but yeah, um, took some pretty smart shots when he did. Missouri State, they got Cesar Edwards and Nick Kramer's from St. Louis, redshirt freshman. Cesar Edwards is from Xavier, and he actually kind of played. Like he didn't play a ton, but he was like sort of in rotation. I maybe not, but maybe not as much as I thought. But I saw Xavier's game in the Sweet 16. I was there, and he played a little bit. So he is solid. Definitely a good pickup at a school like Missouri State, in my opinion. I think Dana Ford is a great recruiter. As the jury saw, actually, I don't think he's that good of a coach. I think he's more of a recruiter than a coach, if you want to put it that way. But yeah, these are two guys. Kramer's a guy I liked in high school. Can shoot the ball, can score the ball, and has forage eligibility. So take that for sure. Any thoughts on these two acquisitions by the Bears?
Yeah, nice pull to get Nick Kramer, originally from St. Louis, Missouri, to get him from the St. Louis Billikens. Taking a peek at, I want to take a look at what his 24/7 looked like. He had, I mean, a number of Division One offers. UAB offer was on the board for Kramer. So it wasn't like he doesn't have the same backstory as some of the guys we talked about before and the level of offers, but um, for Missouri State lost a really important piece we talked about in um, the man to do it all. You talk who was the plus minus? It's Mafagba, right?
Mugbo, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
So yeah, that like how do you pick up pieces from that? Well, this is like Nick Kramer, that kind of player is a good place to start. Edwards, similar logic applies. And yeah, Missouri State, like it's 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 tough sledding in them as MVC. Like that's still one of the best. I mean, I know we have it this part of our episode, but like MVC can still be a strong
Yeah.
conference, and Missouri
Yeah. It's
State.
it's it's like borderline mid plus.
Yeah. I mean, it depends on the year, right? So like that makes your off seasons like you can tell who clicked in the portal and who didn't. So I'm kind of interested to see if Missouri State uh see how it shakes out.
Yes. UIC, they are in their second year in the Missouri Valley, and they got some solid guys. Marquise Kennedy, they got him to stay in conference. Well, not in conference, but they got him to stay in the city from Loyola Chicago. So he was solid there. Andrew King from Houston Christian was a solid freshman, put up some solid assist numbers, and Isaiah Rivera, who was actually like kind of good at Colorado State. So this is a strong transfer class. I especially like Rivera, considering he averaged like 8.6 points per game this year for them. He played over 12 minutes a game on their team last year. That was a top 25 team. So, yes, some very solid pickers from UIC trying to get their program headed in the right direction.
Yeah, UIC has great location, needless to say. It was a big step for UIC to get in the MVC, and Marquise Kennedy, Andrew King, Isaiah Rivera. Good trio to begin with. Marquise Kennedy, especially. I love that you made that tie with, of course, Chicago. Keep getting him from Loyola Chicago. Um, Marquise Kennedy probably gets himself like into a better situation for him, given that he's heading into his. If I'm counting now, you don't want to make too many assumptions in this era, but I think his eligibility. This should be his final season eligibility for Marquise Kennedy,
It
and
appears to be that way.
yeah, and I mean, he's a good shooter. Good shooter. I do think that depending on his what's asked him at UIC, he can crack um, double digit points per game potentially. Um, and he's in the past had just over 2 assists per game in the 21-22 season. So you could even with better surroundings, you could even see his assists have an uptick too.
Loyola was really good last year too. Like when he did that. So like he's proven to be like a starter caliber on a tournament team. So you definitely take that. And it is very late everywhere. It is past 1 a.m. on the East Coast, past midnight on the Midwest Central Time where I am. It's still pretty late in Mountain Time. Neither of us are in Mountain Time, but it would be past 11 there. So we're gonna call this podcast a night right here. We still have some conferences to go through. Let's see. Would like tomorrow anytime work for you? Like this, it would only take like not that long to get through the rest.
Yeah, my Thursdays are pretty tight wall to wall, although we can certainly look to we'll be in touch. We'll be in touch because it could be a spot.
Yes.
I don't know how your Fridays are. We'll sort it out. Much like these coaches in the portal, we'll sort it out.
Yes. Well, you will hear an episode like in the next few days, like from us. But this is a long episode. If you somehow got through this, we really appreciate you, and we really put a lot of effort into this, researching all these transfers. And yeah, this maybe we talked a little bit too much about them, but like we got to give shouts out to these people. Like how many different podcasts out there are talking about like transfers coming into the Big South and Missouri Valley and the Colonial. Like this
Hey,
is
amen,
why
amen.
we're the best college basketball podcast out there. Speaking about podcasts, have you seen like that all that stuff with like Hunter Dickinson and that podcast he's on?
Mhm.
That is not a good podcast. Not trying to start beef or anything, but we actually know college basketball. Like they're just yeah, that
You
they
had to squeeze that in there before we said goodnight.
yeah yeah got to make some enemies tonight. Feeling dangerous, but yeah, we will see you in a few days. And yes, the transfer portal is buzzing, continues to buzz. Yes, it's amazing. So we will see you soon.